everyone, and welcome back once again to the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. As always, I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. We are missing one. We don't know where Adam is. He was up late watching a bunch of Gundam gaming last night, along with a few of us in chat here. And let me go through who did manage to make it on time. We have Josh Torres.
Excuse any background noise. If you hear any from me, I need the window open because there's been a really terrible heat wave in California lately, and we're dying out here. We're dying.
We have James Galizio.
Ditto here. Same exact situation.
And Chow Min Woo.
Hello. It's what's it, 8 degrees over here, whatever that's in Fahrenheit.
Well, let's trade.
The Canadian here confusing us American. We don't know what 8 degrees is.
Isn't it like 50 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that?
The internet can tell us. Yep, 46 degrees. That's brisk. I'd trade. I am in a desert. It's like 70 degrees here. I would trade this for 46. So I know that Adam Vitale is the other regular podcast participant who is missing. I know that he and a few others were up playing a new Gundam game last night, up to ungodly hours. I went to bed very early compared to them, and he apparently did not set an alarm. We'll see if he shows up late. He's pulling a Chow, which is allowed, of course, but we will give him a free pass. We won't tease him for it. That's reserved only for the best of us.
He wasn't playing a Gundam. He was watching me play a Gundam game, and then like late into the night, it was me, Chow, and Adam had this weird multi-hour Gundam discussion. And then Chow and I went to bed. I don't know if Adam stayed up after that. It was like around 2 a.m. Pacific, and I don't know if Adam went to bed after we said sayonara.
And Adam's currently in Central Time, so he was probably almost all the sunrise before he went to bed. So we might get a very groggy Adam later in the podcast. If we see him, we'll invite him in, but he might just sleep through it. Otherwise, we've got plenty to talk about. It's been a pretty interesting week on the news front, on the RPGs front, and on our site front. So we'll just kind of start out and go through it. Let's start out with some of the features that have gone up on the site in the last week, because some of this will lead to naturally into some of our earliest discussions for the week. Let's get this one out of the way first, because it's from a contributor of the site that doesn't make himself available for the podcast, and that is Nathan Lee was able to put up a review for the Switch port of 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast or following this site for a while, you do know that back in 2020, when this released in English for the first time, this was a game that several of us thought very highly of. It performed very well at the end of the year awards for 2020. I had a personal takeaway from that year and immediately played it early 2021 and thought similarly. And spoiler alert, Nathan also thought very highly of the game. It did get an illustrious RPG site, 10 out of 10 for the site. If you've not played 13 Sentinels, now you should play it. There's some interesting new balance on the Switch version. No, missile rain did not cause his Switch to catch fire, but just a very good game, a game that we want to recommend whenever we get the chance.
Yeah,
so,
I think that was the interesting thing. I was talking to Nathan about that as he was playing through his review copy of the Switch version, saying, oh, there's actually whether it's for Switch technical limitations or they actually whatever the reason is to rebalance it. There's a for people who don't know, there's two modes of this game. There's a remembrance mode, which is more like a visual novel, interactive visual novel mode where you're cycling between different characters and playing out their stories. And then there's a destruction mode, which is more like the real-time strategy mode. That a lot of people that played the original release on PlayStation systems, there was a lot of very cheesy strategies, especially most infamously, it was spamming sentry guns. While in this version, sentry guns have been nerfed and then there's been other things about this re-release that have been tweaked as well. And we didn't know there was actually going to get a balance pass at all. They've never communicated that. We all we was oh, this really fantastic game is coming to the Switch, and that's cool. And we kind of all expected it to be the same product, but this seems to be a somewhat different beast on that. And if you wanted more variety in the gameplay and being pushed to adopt other strategies and think about encounters in a new way, that's an interesting angle from it. And also, there's been some tweaks to freshen up the translation, because there was a very, very few errors in the original, but they kind of cleaned that up a little from what Nathan was saying. And he he did share footage that I think he'll share on social media when it's like nearer to its launch, where most infamously also on the PlayStation systems, as Brian was talking about, is there's this skill called Missile Rain, and like it basically pops down like a whole bunch of like circles on the map in that real-time strategy mode, just like an absolute like gigantic amount, and then you can pop like as many as you can on the screen. You can like it would definitely push the PlayStation systems, even the PS5, like down to like really 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 low frame rates. As on base PS4 it's like single digit frame rates, and somehow the Switch, like Vanillaware, optimized it really well, and it didn't like set the system on fire, and like it still ran at like not like at a perfect frame rate, but like it looks significantly better than the PlayStation 4 performance. And
Reminded me of the performance I saw when I originally played the game on PS4 Pro. So that's about that ballpark, I'd say.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
I have a question for you guys for this game. When I was looking at CD Japan, they were selling like the import of this game with English audio. Is it like, is the Japanese audio like cut out for some reason?
No, it's dual audio. It's dual audio. I'm pretty sure. Did they make it so like you have to download the Japanese voice pack? Or
I don't think so. I think it just might be because the original game was pretty small on PlayStation. I'm pretty sure what the case is that since it's a worldwide release this time, it's they just have like one SKU for the entire world. That would make sense to me.
Yeah, but it should have dual audio, no problem. So if you want to go Japanese voice acting, you're good to go.
If I ever pick up the Switch version and replay it, I will probably do the dub just because I played the original version with sub.
Yeah, I heard the dub's really good. Like I played it a good fair bit of it on the English dub. That English dub is really good.
Usually I would play both. Like first time I will play both audios, and whatever audio I prefer, I'll do that the third playthrough. It's in this world we live in. It's like dubs and subs. Sometimes they're equal. But
sometimes they're not.
Sometimes not. A lot of times I play it, they're usually equal, and it's not always the case like back in the day where it's like the Japanese dubs is always better. It's like no, that's not how it goes.
My general opinion as someone who watches mostly dubs is that I feel like English voice direction has gotten a lot better in general. So now whenever I dislike a dub, it's usually because of a particular actor rather than just like a game itself having a bad dub. It's more of this character is an actor I don't like rather than just saying I don't like this dub of this game. Sometimes, obviously if there's several actors I don't like, I'll just generalize that and say, but for I guess to stay on topic, I played 13 Sentinels with the English dub and I thought it had, I can't point out a bad actor that I didn't like. I only just point out characters that I didn't like, which maybe it's partially attributed to their actor. I don't know. I would have to play it in Japanese to see if I think any better of Megumi. Sorry, Megumi fans. But yep, that's up on the site, and obviously we also have the original review for the PlayStation 4 version up as well. Play it on Switch if you haven't, or or don't wait for the PC version. I do know that Adam kind of goofed. He tweeted out from the site account the April releases.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And he accidentally put PC instead of Switch, which is fine because he manages a list of 100 games releasing, and he just copy pasted from the wrong line or whatever. It happens, but still, sorry to give anyone who follows our Twitter account false hope because this game is not on PC and is not announced for PC at this time. But
yeah, you definitely heard a lot like the shattering of like several hundreds, if not thousands, of hearts that day.
It's okay if we all know that if PC players want to play it, there is a way now.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but Google it.
Switch emulation exists.
All right. The other major review that went up on the site, which we will maybe talk about at length, we'll see how the discussion goes, is the the anticipated release of Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers Edition. So as we record this game released just a couple days ago. We're about a week past when the review embargo dropped, and Cullen Black released the review where he looked at the Switch version of the game. Obviously, it also did release on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox. And Cullen's review, as someone who is a big fan of the game, talked about how he was really, really happy that the game is available now, really enjoyed his time with it, but did specify a good section of his review talking about the performance issues that he had with Switch And then as we reviewed the game, as we shared the review on our social channels, etc., made sure to call that out because it was a significant, impact to his enjoyment, which led to a bunch of discussion about, is this just a Switch version? Is this, something inherent to the game? And that has been kind of an evolving discussion over the last couple of days as reviews that have looked at various various platforms and various versions of the game have kind of come to understand the deficiencies of the Chrono Cross remaster from a performance standpoint. This has been something that has been a little bit of a powder keg, at least from my perspective, as someone who has been interested in this game. I've mentioned in previous podcasts wanting to play it. I literally asked just before this, should I buy this on Steam? It's not that expensive. It's a nice $20 price, but I was told maybe I should wait. I don't know if people here have been following specifically the issues that have been had, other than just performance bad, port not good.
Before we move on, a special guest has arrived, and the chow of the week. Let's say, hi Adam.
Uh-oh.
Hello.
How are you?
Sleepy.
Did you dream of Gundams?
What?
Did you dream of Gundams?
No.
Oh man.
I had a dream when I was watching. Was it Daigo talking? And somehow I had a dream that I own a casino and I was trying to host a tournament of fighting game players, and I went broke or something.
That's so sick, actually. It's a good dream.
That is sick, but is this relevant?
That would make sense, though. It's as we all know, as people that are in the FGC, tournament organizers do not make any money.
Yeah,
that's a terrible business decision.
That's a really hot topic in FGC lately. But that's irrelevant to the current discussion. The Chrono Cross unfortunately doesn't cover the FGC and all that.
Adam, what are your thoughts on Chrono Cross? Just throwing you in the deep end.
I'm not I don't love it or hate it. I think it's interesting. I remember that I like that the game seems to, I don't know, this is kind of vague, but the game seems to reward just kind of exploring, talking to NPCs, just kind of trying things. It's not like a linear, go here, do this, go through this dungeon type of game. It's a little bit more open-ended. Not like open world, but just, it just kind of has this flow to it that I appreciate.
Yeah, it's like you're a very free spirit. I'd say, when I think about that game, and I know Chow wants to chime in, but because there are definitely lingering sentiments, this many years on about how Chrono Cross, was supposedly this follow up to Chrono Trigger, but people had a different idea of what they wanted the Chrono Trigger follow up to be, and there's that whole, it's been this many years later. It is what it is. I think talking about the state of the re-release is probably the valuable part here, because people have kind of made up in their minds whether they're going to pick up this re-release or not, especially this far in, and people know the state of this re-release. I guess I'll kick it off and say this is kind of one of the most disgraceful re-releases that we've seen from Square Enix, definitely lately. It's really sad how the state of this re-release at the moment.
My take with Chrono Cross is it was never a great game to begin with, and there was just this nostalgia failure that people treat it as it was the greatest game of all time. And after the game's out, people know it's trash. Sorry, guys.
So first off, we said we were just going to talk about the remaster. Second, I've been playing.
Did we say that?
This is my first time. Well, that's what Josh.
I'm just saying, the lingering sentiments of Chrono Cross are what they are. However many decades later we are separated from its PS1 re-release, and I was thinking, to kick it off at the very least, we should talk about the hot topic around this Radical Dreamers edition, which is the performance across every platform on this game so far has been not great.
Oh yeah, I can confirm because I got the Xbox version. It also has some pretty terrible frame drops.
And just at the time of this recording, there's a Digital Foundry video that released several hours ago that really set into stone and confirmed a lot of what people were already thinking of, but haven't played the PS1 release in quite a while. And they put it side by side, and there are definitely moments where the PS1 version runs better than the remaster, and it's what's going on? It's
is that the case even with the original graphics settings?
So here's the one caveat with this is it runs the re-release runs worse with the new graphical settings, but it's on the original one, it's about on par, like generally. But you're still just like that's like the bare minimum, right? It's like, oh, okay, thank God it runs just as good as the PS1 version on the original settings. Like, and I would think, modern expectations would say, hey, I kind of wish this was like a little bit better, especially if like you're charging this much. Like you're only charging $20, but at this point, it feels like you're paying $20 for the actual Radical Dreamers content itself, because that's never been officially localized, and that's cool. That's in this package, but at that price point, it almost feels like, hey, you're paying $20 for Radical Dreamers, and then Chrono Cross just happens to be on there. It's like it's a bare minimum. Like bare minimum is a little, to me, it's being like a little bit gratuitous, but it's like it runs. The executable does run. You can play the video game. Just great. Awesome. I can play the video game no matter what state it's in.
You could also play it if you still have your PS3 hooked up.
I don't have PS3. Well, here's the thing, right? Like, there's been reports on the PS3, because there's like, the Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross came out as PS1 classics on the PS3, but now there are reports saying, like, on social media, that, like, how on the PlayStation 3, you can check like the start and the expiration date of like your apps on it. Apparently, I don't know how recent this change was. I don't know if this was like no one knew until like obviously now, when Chrono Cross is back in the mind share again. Of I guess there's a new expiration date on that app. It's like December 31st, 1969. So people can't even like play the PS1 classic at the moment on the PlayStation 3. Is that how it is?
Well, one thing I will say is that this is very clearly a bug, because it seems to be like a database issue, because that specific date that got reset to is like a very like common date, like a kind of default date for Unix file systems, which the PS3 is based off of BSD. Same thing with the Vita.
Have they fixed this?
This occurs with data that should be a timestamp, but is either empty or contains 0.
Yeah, so, but has anyone confirmed that like it's been fixed?
No.
So but that's the main thing. Like no matter what the issue is, it's like it confirms that it wasn't deliberate. That'd be terrible if it was deliberate. Then like that's terrible. But the issue still stands. Of like, hey, what if I already have this? Like, what if I already own this on like an older system, and like I just want to play that? That's still bad that I can't actually do that. Like, reason still stands. I still cannot play like something I already paid for, because there's whatever happened in behind the scenes. I cannot do that, and like the issue and then as far as I know, this still has not been fixed. Is like, that's terrible. That's unacceptable.
I was seeing there's no way to access the old PlayStation Store, right, on web anymore.
No, not on web anymore, which is a damn shame, because it's like, I'm glad that I bought a couple of PS1 games when you still had like access to that store.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm having trouble like keeping track of like the store was shutting down. I remember we had this big discussion on it about a year ago, and people were grabbing different games, and like the Wii Shop was, whenever those like, isn't it coming up that on the DSi and 3DS you can't add money coming up in May, things like that.
Yeah,
it's just unfortunate that we have like this time. We're in like living in this weird like digital age, but these things have expiration dates on them. How long will you be able to grab that digital version of Chrono Cross on as a PS1 classic, or eventually at some point it'll just be?
Yeah, and who knows when they'll actually let you play it to after you grab it? How long till they actually let you access it? Until they fix that whatever Unix bug. So it's just a lot of barriers, and then now you're just kind of faced with like at the moment, I'm not going to pick up this Radical Dreamers edition until the state of like the PC version, and like really any version, like receives patches to like at least run a little bit better, because the footage that we've seen, and as James has experienced, just like the most egregious part about this is like you'd expect like, at least the new graphics to run on par with the PlayStation 1 version, bare minimum, like at least make it run as good as like the original release. And for some reason it's like, okay, well, can't do that. And that's Square Enix decided to like outsource this, and not to like say they didn't try their best, but this is they should have had more time to work on this. They should have had. It just feels like this project didn't get the resources that it needs, and Square Enix is very inconsistent about this when it comes to which studios decide to outsource their IPs to. Some great gold treatment like Legend of Mana, but then there's like
and Saga Frontier Remastered.
Yeah,
It's
but then
like,
but then some of like the romancing sagas have their own issues as well.
well, the romancing saga issues is more specific platforms. There are versions that are like definitely good. I think the issues with romancing saga are down to the fact that they were like full proper remakes, and they also were supporting so many different platforms, including mobile, that some issues fell through the cracks for specific platforms.
Yeah,
input lag.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that like those are like comparable to like what they did to Chrono Cross, because I still think Chrono Cross is probably like near damn bottom of the barrel of like their re-release efforts compared to like all the other ones that they've done recently.
Yeah.
And it just sucks, because you would want because Square Enix has such like a really really awesome history of like these, some people like them, some people don't, but I think regardless they deserve better to like be shown, and how like modern presentation wise, how you decide to like, because for some people this could be the first time they play this game, like
me.
It's my first time.
Yep. And it's like and this is how it is.
The sad thing is, though, is that even with the issues with this port, it's still way more than most companies do for trying to keep their like older titles like
something instead of nothing.
Yeah, it's like, I think just like a few weeks ago we were even talking about how like Square recently has been doing a really good job of making sure that their older titles are preserved, like properly preserved.
I think the initiative is good, but the thing about Square is that it's just so up and down, because like they have like inconsistent, I guess, I don't know, like operations when it comes to which games will be console exclusive, then PC storefront exclusive, or worldwide release on multiple platforms at once. Like this one was, when they do like have like these remasters, they just kind of, we talk about, I think Adam said like Square Enix doesn't actually develop most of their games. We talk about Claytech Works making Brave the Default 2, and Art Dink making Triangle Strategy, and whoever else making this and making that. And it's just like, what it means is that for any given release, whether it's a new product or even like a remaster or port, it just seems like it's a grab bag about like where you'll be able to play it, when you'll be able to play it, what quality it'll have once you are able to play it. Because sometimes you end up with something like Triangle Strategy and Art Dink, where it's like that ended up seeming like a pretty good match, even though at the caveat of being Switch exclusive, and based on the history of the other HD 2D games, we anticipate that it'll come on PC, but that's not announced. And then you have games like Bravely Default 2, where people didn't really enjoy the Claytech Works like art style, and then you have like the Epic Store specific stuff for Final Fantasy VII Remake and for what Neo The World Ends With You. And then you get stuff like this where it's like, oh, you can play it wherever you want, but it has performance issues everywhere.
It's not like, it's like the actual like work put into it at some points are like real good. Like the new like 3D models for the characters, that graphical update, like they're pretty good. Like I like them.
The Radical Dreamers translation's really good.
Yeah, that's what I hear too. And that's just it's so soul crushing. So yeah, like if for people who really want like a detailed breakdown, I recommend that Digital Foundry video that they put up for Chrono Cross. They go into like the nitty gritty of what Digital Foundry does, of like showing like the fidelity of the AI upscaling they used for this, and just how its implementation, it makes it way more blurry than it actually should be, and so on and so forth. If you're really interested.
Yeah, that's the only package I would care for. I would just buy it for the Radical Dreamers, but the thing is, they don't sell it separately, so that's also a problem.
Have you finished the Radical Dreamers part yet, James?
Yes.
Okay, so talk about it.
It's really interesting. It's not fair to really call it a visual novel, because it's not. It's like a text adventure. It's very interesting. It's not too long. It's like 2 hours, maybe 3 or 4 if you do the side routes, which unlock after you finish the main story. which again, it's a nice.
I always forget. So, like, is this for people who are playing Chrono Cross for the first time? What, like, do you think they should play this before or after? Or obviously, you haven't like finished Chrono Cross itself.
Oh,
do you think it should be?
Play it first.
Okay.
Play it first because obviously it came first, and also you get. It's just really fascinating to see where some of the ideas for Chrono Cross like kind of started with, and the tone of Radical Dreamers. I feel like having played it first has already kind of like primed me for Chrono Cross in a way, because I've been enjoying my time with Chrono Cross so far. I'm really early on, but it's like it's funny. People always talk about Xenogears for being like the weird PS1 title with some really, really interesting themes. But it's like from the very beginning, it's like while Chrono Trigger was a story like that had time travel in it, it's like Chrono Cross, like from the very beginning, has this interesting idea of like, man, how different would your life be if just one little thing had changed? How different would this like village be if one little thing changed? And it's like you see like the butterfly ripple effects of like all of these like put on paper small changes and how it can impact like it can ripple out and impact the entire world, and it's really fascinating so far.
So the time travel or the timeline aesthetic is a bit more integrated into the narrative and themes of Chrono Cross.
Yes,
because Chrono Trigger, it's been a while since I played it. I played it for the first time when the DS version came out, and it's like, yes, it has like 5 different time periods that you go to, and it's more like,
it doesn't do anything interesting with it. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like Chrono Trigger is a great game. Obviously, that goes without saying. Like, it's one of the best RPGs that Square Enix has done. But thematically, there's not really that much there, and I feel like I'm enjoying Chrono Cross because there's like from the word go, there's a very strong theme to it, and I kind of dig that.
Chrono Trigger does the really neat thing with Robo, taking advantage of the fact that he's a robot and doesn't have a lifespan. That's the one thing that, having been like over a decade removed from playing it, that I still remember that part of the game being, I don't know, pretty inspired. But we're not here to talk about Chrono Trigger. We're here to talk about the Radical Dreamers edition. So if you tell me that the Radical Dreamers is like 3 or 4 hours long, I'm surprised that Chow is sitting here saying that that's what he would buy the game for.
Because I never had a good experience with Chrono Cross. I just don't like the battle system. And then I didn't like how there's so many like characters in this game that none of them really contribute to the overall story. The only people that are important is basically Surge, Lynx, Kid, and Harley. I think that's about it. Can't think of it's like, why do we have a game with so many characters? It's just like
I thought that was weird too, but like now that I'm actually started playing the game, I understand why it is the way it is. Because again, like the whole game's about all of those like little things that can change based off of like just singular decisions. And it's like, okay, yeah, these characters aren't major, but it's like based off what you do, there's like a chance that they'll just like join your party. And it's like, it's not meant to be like they're not meant to be massive parts of the story. They're just like,
it's like Star Ocean 2 and Suikoden, Chow, where you just get a shitload of like characters in the game, and not everyone's going to be important, but you're getting more content for your buck.
Well, it's almost the way that James is describing it. I know James is also a first time player, and he's a handful of hours in. The characters that you get aren't really like we kind of put together party members and characters as being 1-to-1 when they're really not. Several games, like more strategy focused games, your units that you use in battle are just that. They're units. They're like an array of stats, maybe a theme or a class or a set of abilities, where here they're less so maybe characters, but more almost outcomes of the time travel theming, or not time travel, but it's not explicitly time travel, right? It's more like an alternate dimension.
Yeah.
Where like, Surge's wasn't, it didn't exist.
It's less about time travel and more about time convergence or something.
And then the characters you get are more kind of proxies for delivering the narrative of how outcomes can shift, rather than being this character has this engrossing backstory and this theme and this personality, and you want to be sympathetic or asympathetic to them. So I think that's okay on paper, but I've also not played Suikoden. I have played Star Ocean 2, but that one's kind of on a different level.
Chrono Cross game itself, I agree with Adam that it is, to me, it's more interesting than good, but I respect it because it was very ambitious for its time period. It was definitely one of those like PS1 technical showpieces that's like, dang, like video games can tell this kind of story and like portray the butterfly effect like in this kind of manner. It's really, really cool stuff for its time.
Well, during that time, Square just loves pushing the game to the limits. They love to show off their CGI.
Yeah, that was definitely the time where that's how SquareSoft established their like, that was their footprint in that space of like, check out all the cool technology that we can have that we're pushing. They were always very technologically driven and focused. Like, and in some ways, that's how like Final Fantasy thrives. Is like the new mainline Final Fantasy always has to showcase technology, like the state of like how video game development is evolving. And that definitely they used to have IPs that would like push that boundary too.
Well, Squaresoft was always like, look at the shit we can do, and then a while no one could match them.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean Chrono Cross, hopefully something can happen and patches or fan communities can come together and hopefully make this a better package that feels good to buy and revisit.
Well, I'm currently at the point where April, as I've kind of mentioned in previous podcasts, is like my my backlog month, and I do want to get to Chrono Cross. Is like the 1 April release that I want to play, so it's like, all right, I'll just work on my backlog for the first half of the month, which I have been doing, and then maybe it'll get a couple patches. Like, I don't know if this is really related at all because the developer is different. But like when Chrono Trigger released on PC, it released in an arguably even worse state. And I remember that was when like the idea of these classic JRPGs coming to PC on Steam was not as kind of a given, or given's not the right word. It was really rare to see that headline, Chrono Trigger's coming to Steam. It was a time period, even though it wasn't that long ago, where that was kind of like an eye-opening headline. And then it was really, really like deflating when people realized how kind of shoddy it was. It was basically like ripped assets from the mobile port, et cetera. And then they
not that long ago. Wasn't that like 2015, like 7 years ago?
Well, I meant like, 7 years ago is 7 years ago. It's like not that long ago. I guess it depends on how old you are. Here, Chrono Trigger, Steam.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't 7 years ago.
It was
2018. All right.
Oh, no. Yeah, it was 5 years ago. I thought it was like longer ago than that. Huh.
That's just how time works. That's right as foretold by Chrono Cross.
Yep. Anyways, I was gonna say like, well, there's probably no substantiation for this at all. It's like, well, they mostly fixed Chrono Trigger on PC, but that was different developer, only a PC port, obviously, and not a series of consoles that all suffered. It's like, maybe they'll fix this one.
My question is, would they ever fix it if there was no outrage?
No.
Oh, there you go.
Definitely not for Chrono Trigger at the very least. If people didn't like say anything, they would never touch that again for sure. I also want to like point out like some of the cool things that were put up for the site as supplementary material for the Chrono Cross re-release. Like Cullen and Alex tried to piece together how Chrono Cross connects to Trigger, which is still an impossible task this day. Godspeed to them for trying to pick up on threads on that.
One thing I do want to specify there, because Colin definitely kind of had some gripes with it. It's not specifically how they connect, because you can explain how they connect, apparently. It's just they had to thread the needle of trying to explain how they connect without actually spoiling anything, which is a bit, yeah.
But I mean, like, it's still like hard to like tell someone like it's not as straightforward as you would like it to be for the most part. Which is it's a cool thing. Also, thank you, Adam, for your work on release day of the embargo, on educating people exactly how the BGM remaster worked in this game, because the messaging for Square Enix has been very, very shoddy and downright wrong in certain aspects. You just want to give a quick summary of like how the remastered OST works in Chrono Cross.
Yeah, so I guess let me start at the beginning. So when they first announced it, they just said refined music. And even then, like when they said refined music, they didn't really detail what that meant. My assumption, I really shouldn't be assuming, they should have been more clear about this from the beginning, but my assumption was refined music was just like cleaned up. Like not a rearrangement or an arrangement, not like, new versions really, just like the original music maybe touched up a bit in terms of quality. But then they released like a video about like these rearranged tracks, not the whole game, I guess, but just like a new track with 7 like arranged tracks, like with completely different instrumentation, completely different tones, like a new take on this music. And understandably, people were like, "Oh, I guess this is what the music sounds like in the remaster." And they even said like on the tweet in the YouTube video, like, listen to this music from Chrono Cross the Radical Dreamers edition. So then it's like, oh, I guess from refined they meant like arranged music. Okay. And then there was a blog post from Square Enix that said, don't worry, you can switch between the original and refined. And people were like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Good. But then they corrected themselves saying, actually, no, you can't change it. So at that point, it was like, I guess we're stuck with these arranged tracks. But that wasn't even correct either. So long story short, what it was is that the game itself, the remastered edition, the Radical Dreamers edition, it does have refined music, which really does mean what I initially thought it meant, just like the original music with some equalization and some noise like compression edits, like just some small changes. I haven't listened to the soundtracks. I don't know how noticeable it is, but it's meant to just be like touched up. And then the tracks that they put out a YouTube video for and said, like, listen to this new music, that is only found in the main menu of this remaster. So it's like the menu it's like before you launch into the game, it's like the menu where you decide, do you want to play Chrono Cross or do you want to play Radical Dreamers? So just for the new menu. That's it. When you actually play Chrono Cross, it's pretty much the original tracks. It's the refined music. And then I guess the new, like the rearranged versions that they put out the video for they're just for the menu and also for like the vinyl that they released. So they really should have from the get-go been really more careful with their wording in terms of remastered, refined, rearranged, original music. And it was so confusing. And they still haven't said it like outright clearly, which is why I decided to do it for them. Like, here, let me explain what it actually is, because you never did. It's honestly kind of baffling how poorly it really seems like they had no idea themselves what it was.
Now the thing about that is, if people think the music is like a way different tonality than normal, then it still kind of stinks that that's what they're greeted on the menu. It almost feels like this should be like a YouTube remix, like, oh, this is an interesting new interpretation, but to actually have it officially as part of the remaster, the first thing you hear on the menu screen is a bit weird. I wonder if that's like an artifact of them like thinking like we should redo the music. No, we don't have the budget or the time or the inspiration for this. Let's just take what we have and put it on the menu. I don't know. Just a weird outcome where I'm trying to like think backwards about how this came to be this way, because it seems very like unplanned almost.
I guess the last feature worth mentioning, Chrono Cross related to, that's on the site is Andrea put together, for an article, like some of the tweets that have come out from Square Enix's side, from the original producer of Chrono Cross, Hiromichi Tanaka. They're sharing a few notes on like the development of the re-release, how it was very challenging to like get like the actual resources and assets from the original release to work on this, because a lot of game development back then didn't preserve materials as fervently as they are today. Like they would just like in some cases scrap like assets after the project was done, and who knows where, like who or what like decided to preserve that, like decades later. So it's just it's a real neat look behind the scenes of like just some of the challenges they faced with the Radical Dreamers edition re-release. It's not unfortunately, like it's a pretty common thing when it comes to like kind of re-releasing old JRPGs such as this game. It's like, oh, where do we even start? Where are the assets for this game?
Like how for the ports of so many of the PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy games, they had to like create them from the PC ports back then because the original console files were lost. So they had to like recreate it from a port. It's just unfortunate that that's where we end. And then you end up with weird oddities like 8-directional movement on Final Fantasy 9. As far as I know, that's still the case for that.
Yeah. And obviously, the like infamous ones like the Silent Hill re-release and what happened to that. So just but good on them for doing their best on that end. And it's always difficult to try to remember like how did we do it back then? And then so many decades, like what did we do? Where is the asset for like that bridge like at the basement where we used to work 3 decades ago?
It's on like this old giant 80 megabyte hard drive that would fit 6 terabytes nowadays. But yeah, we'll probably let's talk about Chrono Cross Remaster on at least one more podcast as people who are new to it. Or maybe, I don't know if anyone here who's played it already is planning on revisiting it, especially considering the state that it's in. But I do want to kind of like, well, I know that once I get around to playing it, I will be interested in talking about it, and maybe James as well once he's further in. So we'll probably see it again. It's unfortunate that the state that it released in kind of a state that it's hard to recommend. Hopefully in a couple months they'll do what's necessary to put it in a better state, but we just have no idea how likely that is because with Square Enix, it always is just kind of a crapshoot. So other games that we've been playing this week, I guess I'll hand it off to Adam because I know that Adam has kind of been playing through a bunch of smaller titles that you don't have to talk about everything you've been playing over the week, but I do just think that you've been playing some things that I've been interested in hearing you talk about because I haven't had the opportunity to hear you discuss your time with them. I know you've played a few Yeast games. I know you've played the original Star Ocean 1. So I'll let you have like a wild card here. Pick a game that you've played in the last week and just share your thoughts on it.
Yeah, sure. So I'm doing a big move. Like I'm moving 2,000 miles in the coming weeks. And so I didn't want to like play anything like some gigantic RPG right now or whatever. I just wanted to play some small things while I had, time before all the move headache comes in. So there were a few smaller titles, shorter titles that I wanted to get to for a while. So I played all 4 of them. I don't know if I'll talk about all of these, but I played the original Star Ocean, and I mean the one that's on Super Famicom. It was never officially translated. And then I played 3 East titles. I played East 4, Mask of the Sun, which is, if you're not familiar, there's 3 different versions of the 4th East game. There's Mask of the Sun for Super Famicom. There's Dawn of East for PC Engine, and then there's the newest and most canon one is Memories of Celceta originally for Vita, and now it's on PS4 and PC. So I played Mask of the Sun, and then I played East 3 Wanderers from East, PC Engine version. There's lots of different versions of that one. And then I played East 5 Kefin Lost Kingdom of Sand. So all these games are pretty short, and I think Star Ocean's the longest at around like 20 hours. The East games you can beat in like 10 hours or less. So, I just kind of figured I'd stick to games like these for the time being. And let me just start with Star Ocean. I reviewed the remaster of the remake of the first game a couple years ago when it came out on PlayStation 4 and Switch, and I'm not a big fan of that game. It has some of the elements to Star Ocean that I like. I've talked about this on a recent podcast when I played through Star Ocean 5, in terms of the item customization, item creation systems, the personal skills, the weird crafting systems with like the music and the talents that are in the game, like the mineralogy and the weird things and like you can do to create new items and almost break the game open. And it's just a really interesting kind of loose, freeform sort of item crafting system that not very many games have that I'm kind of fond of. And those are all in the original Star Ocean. The original Star Ocean, it's a pixel art style, and it's pretty much a spiritual successor to Tales of Fantasia, the original. And you can kind of it looks more like that, And there's actually points where I think like the pixel art in the original version looks quite a bit better than the remake, which was originally a PSP game, because the remake has some like PSP era backgrounds in terms of like 3D models, but they're very simple because they're
the remake
PSP.
and the remaster of the remake have different art styles, right?
Well, I'm talking about like the areas, the locations.
Okay.
Yeah, character art is different, of course.
Man, we live in a time where we have to say like the game, the remake, or the remaster of the remake. Anyway, continue.
So yeah, like, but in Star Ocean First Departure, which is the remake of Star Ocean, you have like this new character art, and there's the PSP version art, and then the newest version has art by
Katsumi Inami.
What's his name? Yeah, Inami. And it's really good. His character art is for the game, but you know the game itself, like we're running through the locations, is a PSP game, so it's it's pretty simple, it's pretty basic. So there's actually points where the pixel art in the original version actually looks really nice. The original version, it has a very different combat system. It almost reminds me. It's you don't really move your character in real time. The battles take place in real time, but all you can basically do is select which enemy you're doing an attack on, and then your character will move across the battlefield to the enemy and do the attack. So they're like moving around an arena, so to speak, but you don't really have control over where they're going. It sort of reminds me almost like of a Grandia game without like the Grandia like turn bar, whatever you call it, but just in terms of how the characters move around the battlefield, and that positioning matters. You just don't have a whole lot of control over where they specifically are, other than just by which enemy they're attacking. But it's still it's interesting. It's the game itself just feels a lot more compact than First Departure. Everything kind of moves at a quicker clip, and I think it's better for it. And it still has the interesting components that the older Star Ocean games were known for. Like there's like something like 12 different characters in the game, but you can only pick 8 to be on your team. You know, some of them are mandatory, of course, but depending on what you do in the game in terms of the story, you'll end up with a different party with different capabilities. And you know, it's kind of cool that I wish you saw more of that, but with modern budgets and whatnot, it's very unlikely to see.
I mean, they dropped that in 3 party
members.
I forget.
3 had a few. 3 had a few either ors. 4 dropped it. Well, 4 had you could get Aramat or Phase if you did the right things, and then 5 is different. I doubt we'll see it again. But yeah, it's a game I'm glad I played.
We'll bring branching characters back.
I doubt it. But yeah, basically, I think I prefer the original Star Ocean over First Departure, just because it's a little bit less. It's a little bit quicker, a little bit more compact. Things move at a faster pace, and it doesn't feel so bloated. I mean, not that First Departure is like this gigantic game, but it just kind of slows everything down a bit. And also, I just think it's interesting that it's just kind of it makes the first Star Ocean more unique, whereas First Departure basically is just Star Ocean 1 in the disguise of Star Ocean 2.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, I've only played First Departure. I haven't played the original Super Famicom. Is it Super Famicom?
Super Famicom.
Yeah, so I've never played that, but like the way you're describing it, and I kind of did feel it when I played First Departure followed by Second Evolution. Like First Departure feels like it was too little butter on too much bread, or whatever the saying goes. Like, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna put this in the vein of Star Ocean 2. People like that one, right? But then like the story is kind of threadbare. The amount of locations and characters you get is just kind of limited in scope.
There's a lot of backtracking.
There's like 5 cities in the game, like in the main like crater area where that one guy turns to stone, like early in the game.
The first dungeon in the game is this Mount Mediex, I think, and you end up going up and down that mountain. Like I think it's mandatory to go up and down that mountain like 4 times. And if you do like some of the optional stuff, like if you recruit the Felpool girl whose name I forget, like Parisi. You have to do this little side quest. You have to go up and down the mountain like 2 more times, and then if you do other stuff, you have to like go up and down that mountain again. It's just kind of there's a lot of backtracking in that game, and it's maybe it's just of the era, but there's one thing that's also interesting to point out. First Departure has like a more traditional like world map. like a classic JRPG world map where you have like your city areas and some dungeon areas, but everything else is just connected by like a world map, right? The original game doesn't have that. It's instead more of a like connected field areas. So it's kind of interesting. They're like paths. It's really easy to get sort of lost in these paths. There is a map in the game, but it's very very simple and basic, and almost not very not very useful. But anyways, it was just kind of an interesting experience just to see a different take on the original game.
So now you are the Star Ocean expert. Are you slated to review Divine Force?
If I'm available, I probably will like assign myself for it. I haven't reviewed anything yet this year, so I played every other Star Ocean, including like I said a few podcasts ago. I played the Game Boy Color version game, Blue Sphere. So, anyways, the other games I played were 3 different East titles. So I played all the other East titles, and these are the last 3 I needed to get to. And so they're all very different.
I'm interested in hearing about East 5 because that is the one. Because obviously East is a series where there's canon and non-canon entries of like the different parts of the different games that are supposed to like cover the same story content in a weird way, except for East 5. So East 5 is the one that I'm most interested in hearing about because that's like the I don't know, the gap.
It's like East 4 has been remade, like I said, it had 2 different versions, and then it was remade. And then East 3, Wanderers from East, has its remake in Oath of Felghana, which is the same story, completely different gameplay, but same.
Which is great.
General story, right. Oath of Felghana is one of the best. It's extremely good. So East 5 has never been, it's been ported, but it hasn't been remade. So
it has East been remade for Taito. Taito remade it for the PS2.
Yeah, I was gonna say the PS2 version is like completely different. It's like 3D.
Oh, I thought it was more similar.
Oh no, like the reason why when we were in the staff chat last night for people listening, I was talking about how I'm split between wanting to play the PS2 version of East 5 or just waiting for an inevitable remake because the PS2 version of East 5 has a kind of not quite, but similar to like Ark of Napishtim combat system. So
is the PS2 version of East 5 like I played the PS2 version of East 6, which is like a weird Konami joint, which had like the 3D models. Is this like similar to that?
No.
Oh, good.
That's what I was thinking. It was like, it was like E6 on PS2.
These are remade by Taito, and was it? I think the only one I beat from their remake collection was Yeast 3. That one was actually like decent. They changed like how Adel moves in that one to have like sort of like a combo, even though they still kept the horizontal 2D scrolling combat. But now he actually has like a combo, and it actually is much easier now instead of like the old one where you don't really have control of your hitbox.
But you played the original East 5.
I played the original East 5 because it's the version that has a fan translation, and so this is Super Nintendo or Super Famicom. And it's weird. It's definitely like people say it's the black sheep of the series, and it's very evident why. It feels kind of like a very light Zelda-like mixed with some East flair, in that you're moving, Idol around on like a 2D, plane, but rather than using the bump system that many of the previous games used, you do there's a button to swing your sword and a button to raise your shield, and so you actually have to move around and like make sure enemies are close enough to you but not touching you because you're not trying to bump into them, and then swing your sword at them. But so it's Zelda-like in that some of the dungeons have some like sort of puzzly, element to them. It's not Zelda-like in that you get any other like items at all, really, like a Zelda game you would expect. But it kind of has just like that sort of structure to it in some regard. It is the original game is, especially compared to the other East titles, very easy. So I'm not surprised that they re-released this version with an expert version, which is basically, as far as I understand it, the same game, just like balanced to be more difficult. Because the original game is definitely like one of the easiest ones. Just random like reason why you can buy health potions in this game. In most East games of like this age and this era, you could buy like one health herb to give you like one heal before you'd have to like go back to some healing point. In this game, you can buy 10 healing potions and more like super heal potions. So you can basically stock up on these really cheap healing items, and I did because there's no reason not to. And then like during any boss fight, literally I'm just like walking right into their hit boxes, just swinging my sword, because who cares if I get hit a little? I have like 10 healing potions. I might use maybe one, or probably one, maybe two, and I have 10. I like the balance is very weird. Like it makes it very easy. I did actually kind of like the story of Ys 5. It's called Kef and Lost Kingdom of Sand. It's literally about like this kingdom, like as the title says outright, that disappeared, 500 years ago and is now just a bunch of sand. And then there's this sort of like dimension shifting, time warping element in the game. And there are a lot of NPCs in the game. There's a lot of different characters that are kind of playing roles in the game. Unlike, something like Oath and Felghana, where it's just, a kind of handful of characters. But I actually thought it was kind of interesting and kind of fun, some of the story elements in the game. So it'll be interesting to see if this game does ever get like a modern remake. Which I don't know if Falcom has teased that at all, for people just sort of just speculating, well, they remade 3, they remade 4, maybe they'll remake 5 again. But if it ever does, I'm actually kind of curious to see that now that I played 5. The other Ys games, I played Wanderers from Ys, which is the side-scrolling one. It's the only side-scrolling one. I played the PC Engine version, which wasn't very hard. And I know some versions of Wanderers from Ys are very hard. I think maybe the Super Famicom version is.
I played the Super Nintendo version. I gave up because I couldn't freaking kill the second last boss. Everything he does is like one shots you. It's like, even with a save state, it took 3 hours to kill him, I swear to God.
Wanderers from Ys, it's the side scroller game. Like you sort of mentioned, the remake of it, or the newest version of it, has like, you can make combos. This game, the version I played, there really are no combos. You can like swing your sword, you can duck and swing your sword, or you can like point upwards and swing your sword, and that's about it. So it's a very simple sort of side-scrolling game, and I only really struggled on the last boss, but the rest was doable. And it's one of the shorter. All these Ys games are pretty short, but this one is especially short. I beat it in one sitting, which was about like 6 or 7 hours, and I don't know. It's okay. It was a fun change of pace, short and sweet. Something different. No other Ys game is like it. It looked nice. I played the PC Engine version, which it doesn't maybe have like the same PC Engine players like Dawn of Ys does, which was actually like made for the PC Engine, where this was just a port. But it looks nice. And then Mask of the Sun is probably the least popular of the Ys 4s. That's kind of a weird way to put it, but it's a little bit janky. It kind of feels like it's not very smooth compared to Dawn of Ys or other games like that are like it. And but I thought it was fine.
So do you think? I don't know if like what are the current rumors for the Ys series? Do we think the next one's Ys 10, or do we think like one of these will get a remake, or like an official English version of Ys 5?
I don't know what they've said specifically compared to like just what people are speculating out of nothing. Obviously, one of the possibilities is, sure, it's Ys 10, it's brand new, or that they'll remake a game, because they've done that many times. I believe, I don't have this in front of me, so don't take this at face value, but I believe Kondo has said something like they want to do something different in terms of its structure or its styling, so it might not be like a party-based Ys like the previous few, or they're going to do something different. Because 8 and 9 are, of course, very similar games. The structure is a little bit different, but otherwise they operate very similarly, and they're based off of the sort of foundation that 7 had and Salsetta had too, in terms of this party-based structure. So I believe he said something like they're going to try something a little different.
I know what they're going to do for something different. They're going to use their knowledge that they gained from the VR of Hajimari no Kiseki, So that the remake is going to be a VR first person. You're Adol now. You're in control.
Did you find something, Brian?
Yeah, so I Googled it. This is Gaming Bolt. It's the sort of thing I had my pick of the litter. In January, in an interview with Weibo, this is a translation from someone on Twitter, so I don't have a veracity of it. They are working on a Ys game. It won't be released in 2022. There will be new ideas. They say Ys 7 through Ys 9 have maintained a very similar system. The new work will be completely different, which is kind of true statement. And even with Celceta, they've done like this map percentage unfogging thing, a little bit of this Metroidvania-esque thing with the capabilities that you get with the monstrum powers and things like that, or with the party members you get in. Yeah.
Well, it's very clear that the next Ys game is going to be just like Ys Dark Souls, Ys Souls, Add All Souls.
Well, it's like I have, but the party system, it took like 3 games to get it right. It's like I just hope they just ditch it.
I know some people aren't a fan of it ever. Like they didn't like it in 7, Celceta, 8 or 9. They're just not a fan, which is fair.
Yeah, there's some fans that I know that
whatever.
I liked it. I liked it in 8. I just didn't like most of the characters at all. And then 9, I liked the characters better. But at that point, I was just kind of like, it was just like, oh, I know what the system is.
You need to find something different. Yeah, I hope the next one's not party based because it's kind of old at this point.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I played at least a version of every Ys game. Not every port of every version, but I played a version of.
Well,
each.
You know what to do next.
Unless you want me to play something like Ys Strategy, which I own.
Yes.
But I hear it's like absolutely terrible.
Highly recommend.
Yeah. We
apparently the character you're using is like ancestor of Adol somehow.
I don't know anything about it except it's a strategy game on DS and it's very bad.
Obviously, we need to hear the Ys experts' impressions of Ys strategy.
Well, when you're in the middle of your move, you can have your DS next to you, and if you're in a hotel room halfway through, you can pull it out and play your version of Ys strategy.
I don't know if there's any other spin-off I should play.
There's you can go watch that high school mini anime series where Adol interacts with the Trails cast.
Oh yeah.
You can also watch the Ys 1 and 2 OVAs if anyone's seen that.
I hear those are actually pretty decent.
Yeah, they actually were pretty good.
You could also play Typing of Ys.
Yeah,
Wait, isn't that included in one of the other games?
Included in Y, the Ilvered Insurrection.
Oh, that's right. I knew I had run into it somewhere.
Right,
because I have that.
No, it's the Arg's Adventure, not the Ilvered Insurrection.
Okay, I played both of the Zwei games, and I remember that it was I ran into the typing game in one of them. I just don't remember which one it was in.
Did you play the fighting in the Ys versus Sora and
Kiseki?
No. There you go.
All right, with that, I'll transition to what I've been playing for the last week. About a month ago on the podcast, I ended up talking a tiny bit about the forgotten RPG of the spring, and that is Elex II, which released literally 3 or 4 days after Elden Ring or something like that. And naturally, it kind of fell through the cracks. We haven't reviewed it yet. It's a game I've wanted to get to, but I got distracted by things like Triangle Strategy and other stuff. So, as I've mentioned, April is kind of my backlog month, and I finally made some time to put something like 25 hours into Elex II. And it's a very, very interesting game that I think a certain a certain type, a certain category of RPG fans will adore. Now, this is going to be the most bland statement ever. This is going to be something that I can say without a lot of substantiation, and you'll just take my word for it because it's very, very banal. If you liked Elex 1, you will like Elex 2. If you didn't like Elex 1, you will not like Elex 2. And if you haven't played Elex 1, you probably won't like Elex 2 because if you've been searching for this sort of RPG, you've probably played Elex 1. So Elex 2 is, I feel like I have to caveat this in a lot of ways. It is not a pretty game. It is not a polished game. It is not a high production value game. It is a game that is an acquired taste. It is like the sour pickles of gaming. I don't know. It's something that you kind of have to know what you're getting into, and it's hard to compare it to other games because it doesn't really play like a lot of other ones, except for potentially other older Piranha Bytes games. This game is, I guess, a game that I haven't played, but when I've heard Adam discuss it, has kind of given me the same vibe, is Kingdom Come Deliverance. So this game is an open world game where so many of those games, so many like high AAA games are open world this day. So you kind of have this weird dichotomy where open world AAA action based games is like the blockbuster standard, the blockbuster blueprint. And then this game is clearly not that, but it's an open world RPG that really puts RPG as the first genre in its listing. It's not an action game. It's not a spectacle game. It's not a blockbuster, but it is an open world RPG to every like true sense of the word. You start out absolutely like pathetically weak, pathetically poor, pathetically like with ugly, crappy gear. You can't do anything, and you're just like scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of like, someone please give me a better weapon or a better gun or better skills because I can't do shit. And then like you actually feel it's frustrating, it's difficult, it's challenging. And then as you progress through this game, it is very like narrative focused. It's very story focused in terms of encountering different characters, encountering different viewpoints of the world. And despite that, it is very open-ended. There is not like a linear path of missions that you come across. It kind of like sets you on a literal road and says basically like, the fort is over there, but you can, nothing's stopping you from going anywhere. And there is really no bespokely prescribed path in which you must go, other than, oh shit, these guys are too strong, I better turn back and go the other way.
This actually does sound a lot. I think Kingdom Come Deliverance is a little bit more like, here's the main like story path where you have to go to a certain spot. But in terms of the balance that you're talking about and some of the side questing in that game is sort of similar, where it just it seems to have a very similar sort of, from what I was watching you play, similar sort of like quest design and like faction design to that.
The faction design thing in this game is really quite awkward. So in Elex 1, there are 3 main factions. There's the Berserkers, there's the Outlaws, and there's the Clerics, which are like, they're called Clerics, but they were like the high-tech faction of the game. And in this game, they add 2 more, the Morcons, which are like devil worshippers, and the Albs, which are like Borg or whatever. And the game treats it like this very mechanical thing, like you belong to a faction or everyone has an allegiance to one of these. They are 5 different, very like, they each have their specific way of dress. They have each have their specific way of combat, what sort of gear they use, what sort of technology they use. And then literally the opening premise of the story is an NPC saying like, we can't combat the alien threat like this. We need to unite the factions. We need to create the 6th power, the one that combines the other 5. And it just seems like, so like, did a middle schooler come up with this? I don't know. It's just very, very bland, very mechanical, this is really,
it feels very video gamey.
Yeah. But luckily I will say that even though that general premise is almost like laughably bad, I will say that the quest writing itself is actually quite good, it was good in the first game as well. The quest log in this game is quite designed interestingly, where you kind of have like these header categories, like with your general sort of assignments, your basic objectives, and then they accordion out into like different missions that you get that are the things that you've learned, the notes that you've taken, the people that you've talked to about, I should do this, it will help me complete this objective, or I need to talk to this person, or I need to accomplish this task. So it kind of like threads out like that, where it has almost different tiers of like objectives that fold and nest into it and through each other. And oftentimes you'll be working on one objective where I might be doing something simple, like I'm at the Morcon base and they hold prisoners because they're not good people, but one of the prison guards wants to make sure that they get like at least some sort of like basically ration and weekly pay so that they can like get their essentials for food and supplies. And in order to convince other people of this faction to go along with this, this jail guard's plan, you have to do things for them, which sounds like the typical RPG, like scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Well, if you want my support, you'll have to do this. Only it does thread between the factions where you'll have to end up like, I won't help you with this until you travel across the map and do this thing from this place. And then once you go there, you'll learn that they have their own problems and their own different sort of objectives that have to be carried out before they'll even entertain the thought of talking to you, or they might like immediately be hostile to you on site. So it's kind of one of those games where you might go into like a play session. You sit down for one evening and you're like, today I'm going to accomplish this, but you don't know what that'll entail. And it'll end up like daisy chaining a bunch of different sort of kind of emergent narratives together as you basically get your character introduced to the different areas of the game, the different NPCs that are, that you need to get on your side, or the different allegiances. And as always, or as maybe expected, this is the sort of game where it's like nothing's stopping you from being just a dickwad and just going through and murdering everyone. Like, as far as I can tell, there are no quest owners that are like, what's the term for it? Like they have like the natural like God mode where you can't kill them because they're quest essential. I don't know that for certain because that's not the way I play these games. I haven't tried to see like, can I kill this person or this person? But I have accidentally like thrown grenades and people get caught in the blast. Like, no, I didn't mean them for them to get into the combat and be a casualty. Let me restart and reload. There's a lot of save scumming in this game.
Yeah, but I've heard, I mean, from what I know of like Piranha Bytes games, their strengths are the sorts of things that are like harder to showcase. Like, if you just look at the game's combat, it's not very good. If you just look at the game's presentation, just like visuals, it's not very good. And like technical performance, it's not very good. Yeah, but it's like the world and quest design and like NPC kind of like structures and designs and interactions. Those are the types of things that I know that the first Elex was sort of praised for. Rather than just, some RPGs where it's just like fetch quest, go here, fight these things, and then get some reward, and that's kind of it. From what I remember watching you play Elex 1 and Elex 2, it's, just a little bit more involved in terms of how things can carry out. Like you were saying, how these quests kind of link together and tell a story, and your decisions and how you approach it can affect things. So you kind of have to be like, that's what you're in for. Like that's the reason to play, is what I kind of understand.
And the like one basic example of that is I had a quest where basically I'm with the Albs, which are the Borg like people, and they basically hyper value efficiency almost to the extent where how efficient a person is deemed to be determines like their rations for the month, in terms of like, do they manage their emotions well, are they good at their jobs or whatever. They like have like this rating system. It's kind of like a weird almost like satirical take on like a weird combination of like fascism and also like over bureaucracy. They're not meant to be sympathetic at all. I mean, they're basically Borg. And then one character basically says like, he's not taking his rations because he doesn't want to be basically like the equivalent of assimilated, but if they find out that he's not doing it, they'll execute him. So you need to basically steal from his like stash where he's been storing away his rations and not injecting them. And as always with an RPG of multiple outcomes, you can ignore his request and they'll find it in his stash and he'll be executed. You can report him, which basically is like taking an even like further stance to saying like, nope, I'm going to side with the fascists here. Or obviously you can be the goody two shoes and help him out. But if you do help him out, you're on a time scale because you have to do it before the next inspection, things like that. So there's lots of things where it's like, if I want to see all the ways that this quest ends, I need to play this little simple 20-minute quest 3 times. And chances are it doesn't affect too much, but every single quest is like that. And then like there's some quests where I trust a person and then they end up stabbing me in the back by like ratting me out. And I'm like, okay, what if I reload my save and don't trust them in the first place? But that's not in the spirit of the game, so I'm not going to do that. So it's the sort of thing where when I say it's a real RPG, that's kind of what I mean, even though that sounds a little bit like
it's a real RPG. I love it.
but in terms of having like the choice, your choice and consequences matter in terms of role playing.
Do you mean you're not just like trying to get like the best optimal outcome in every single situation and like scumming all the time?
Golden path.
You would never do that, right?
I would never follow a guide to get the golden path ever. The last thing I'll say on this game, because I understand that not people listening to this probably aren't that interested in it, is that what this game does really well is make resources appear very valuable in terms of money, in terms of attribute points, and in terms of skills. I mentioned that you start out like very poor and very weak. And it's the sort of game where it's like when you're at a shop and they have new gear, you might have enough money to buy one new piece of gear, maybe, if you've done quests. And then like you might buy that and be like, all right, I'm going to be poor for the next 3 hours because I bought myself a new shield or whatever. So money is very hard to come by. I'm sure the game's been out long enough that I'm sure there's like strategies online where if you do this and if you craft this thing and sell it at this place, you'll generate a lot of money. But I guess playing naturally and organically without looking up like outside resources, I'm finding myself like strapped for cash pretty often. And the same is true for attribute points. That's when you level up and you can just dump your points into strength, intelligence, things like that. And skill points, every time you level up, you get a single skill point that'll teach you something like locksmithing or hacking or things like that. And they're always at a premium, all three of those like effective currencies. So every time I level up, every time I get a new set of attribute points, I'm always like, do I put more points into strength so I can finally wield a better weapon? Or do I put more points into intelligence so I can finally get enough to learn the hacking skill? And then if you get a skill point, you're like, do I finally learn that hacking skill? But it might be really, really handy to be able to craft my own ammunition rather than having to buy it. So it always feels like you're not spoiled for choice. You have, or it's kind of the opposite of that, where you have to make a decision and it will be consequential and it'll determine how you play the game and what build you will end up having. I originally wanted to make my character like a ranged character using like crossbows and shotguns, but I couldn't ever find like a shop that sold me a good ranged weapon. So I ended up finding like a decent sword. So I put my stats into strength instead. But now I kind of have these skill points that will allow me to craft ammunition, because that's where I thought I was going. Like, well, I guess now I can use this to craft ammunition from materials and sell it instead. That'll be an income source for me to help solve the other, scarcity of that. So I actually kind of enjoy it. It feels like I'm making consequential decisions constantly. And every time I level up, I'm actually like hesitating, like, what do I put these stats into? I don't know.
This sounds like a nightmare if you're a min-maxer.
Yeah, like I'm thinking like Elden Ring, where it's like I need to like I know exactly what or maybe not exactly, but I have a really good idea of what I need to put my stats into because I know what weapon I'm using. I know how it scales, etc. Or I know exactly what I want my weight limit to be. Where here, it's like, what do I want to do? I've been using this, but if I go to this next place, they might have a better weapon. And I've actually really enjoyed it, rather than being like, oh, I'm rich, I can afford everything, I never have to make a consequential decision. But I know that might turn some people off, but I actually really thought it's been keeping me really engaged. And also, when you're doing a quest and you have the opportunity to like bribe someone, it's kind of like, well, I could do this, but I know money is really valuable. So if I bribe someone, that might help me in the short term, but then I might not. I'll be strapped for cash again, which is already like a scarce resource. So it's not only getting new gear, but it's like how you progress through quests. If you decide not to bribe someone, you have to get through another way. So I will probably write a review for this game once I finish it and put something up for it. It probably won't score that well because I can't ignore like the places where it is deficient. It's an ugly game. I remember when I was streaming it, like one of the first characters you meet is a child character, and it's like PS3 era shrunken model, enlarge the head, child character. It looks like this misshapen gnome thing when they're supposed to be human. And then I've been actually capturing some footage for it because I might do a YouTube video, but I'm like, man, this game just does not present itself well at all. It's a really hard sell. But hopefully at least here I've given you some inclination about like why I'm not immediately just like uninstalling it, because it is keeping me kind of hooked, even though I can easily see where it falls short. And we do have one more game here that we've kind of mentioned kind of in passing as sort of some context for why a certain someone was late. And we were talking earlier about Gundams. Josh, why were we talking about Gundams?
Yeah, we were mentioning earlier that Chow, Adam, and I went to sleep really late. And part of that was because last night I was streaming throughout this weekend, as the recording of this podcast, they're holding the Gundam Evolution closed beta playtest. And that is most people first saw this at the PlayStation State of Play event. Where they show, there's this new cool Gundam FPS game that looks a lot like Overwatch, and for that's basically what it is. It is a new free to play Gundam game that is pretty much presents itself a lot like Overwatch. So I've been playing a lot of that throughout this closed beta period because like you said, it's kind of a slow week for games in April in general. So I just wanted to try that out. It's been a really, really fun experience. I've been very surprised. I played Overwatch for a good chunk when it first released, but like fell off about like 6 months later. But this game is even though it looks and plays a lot like Overwatch, there's little things about it that I appreciate. So the game's like character dynamics, they're very clearly inspired by some Overwatch kits like the Gundam Exia and Barbados. Although they are both melee units, they do take some inspiration from Genji from Overwatch. Like their kits are separated where Gundam Exia has like throwing daggers, which is like a lot like Genji's throwing stars, while Barbados is much more a close range oriented where it has like this big like mace as its primary move, and it's focused on like dealing a lot of damage like up front, like in your face, while Gundam Exia is very hit and run. So that's where they kind of diverge, and even though they have like the same sort of foundation guiding their character philosophy. And Sazabi,
did you play a lot of Overwatch?
Yeah. So, and then Sazabi made like it's kind of like your big tank character, but it's almost like Reinhardt, but I'd say Sazabi is like a little bit more versatile in the way it plays. While Reinhardt has like that big like shield that it deployed. Like when I played, I don't know how the state of Overwatch is in the last like 3 or 4 years and whatever whatever character revamps and reworks characters had. I have no idea. Like my Overwatch knowledge is very basic, like near the state of launch. From what I remember many years ago. Like the Sazabi is cool in Gundam Evolution because it has like a beam shotgun rifle with a shield, and then like when it's up close, it can hold up the shield while it's firing its beam shotgun, and like it has like a cool skill where like you can throw its like beam tomahawk, and like when its beam tomahawk is in place, you can like dash over to it, so you can like throw the beam tomahawk up, and then like do your dash with it, actually like fly up to that tomahawk. But then he can also dash to other characters, and then like it's ult. Every character in this game has an ult, like in Overwatch. So like Sazabi's ult is like deploying its funnels, and then they'll go fuck up like nearby targets for you. So it has like about 14 characters available in its closed beta test. We don't know like a release date. We know it's launching on PS5, and I think it's launching on other platforms too. I'm not sure if it's coming to Xbox, but I know it's coming like I think PS4 also. But PC for sure. I've been liking it a lot. I play the character that I like right now in that game is just the Grandpa Gundam, the first Gundam RX-78-2.
Grandpa Gundam.
Yeah, I kind of refer to it as Grandpa Gundam. Um, where it has like it's really basic, but it's like a really powerful like beam rifle primary weapon, and then like its shield, its skills are very basic because like one of its skills is like putting up its shield in front of it. You can't fire off of it, but it's kind of like a good defensive mechanic if you're trying to like capture a point in the game. And then its other skills like getting like the Gundam hammer, like the kind of like the chain ball. Like you can like throw it at someone, and like if their shield is up, they'll stun them. Even if their shield isn't up, it'll do a lot of damage and like push them back. And its ult is like firing this super napalm grenade that has like a big AoE that like people have to like get out of. But like the big downside to it is like you can like actually like shoot at the super napalm and like disable it. So you have to be very mindful of like how where you deploy it. And it has like a I'd say it's faster paced than Overwatch because every character has like this boost bar attached to them, like at the lower left corner of the screen, like this boost gauge. And for some characters, they have like one long gauge, while others have like pips, like say like 2 pips or 3 pips of like boost gauges. And how this manifests in the game is there are universal mobility options where everyone like instead of running, since you're not playing humans, you're playing as giant robots. They have thrusters on their back, so you can like instead of like having like a stamina gauge for running, they have a thruster gauge like to show like okay they can like boost this amount. But then like for other more like quicker maneuvers, they can like have like a boost dash where you can like just quickly move in front or side to side, and then like for characters that have like 2 or 3 pips of like their boost dash gauge, like it'll immediately take one off to do that maneuver. So like if you die and then like you go spawn back, it's not like Overwatch where it takes a while for some characters to get back into the action. This boost gauge allows characters to like re-engage at a much faster pace, and that's what I really like about it. There's like a lot more mobility options like all around for every character. It's not just like, oh, I'm playing this character. I'm like kind of my mobility is what it is. It's like, no, there's actually.
Well, I saw you playing as the gun tank, which I just kind of assumed. I don't play like the hero shooters, but I just kind of assumed, okay, with my knowledge of gun tank and my understanding of hero shooters, like I'm assuming that was like I kind of assumed it was a heavily armored, slow moving, very immobile person, but had something to make up for it, like it had a higher health pool or shields or something.
That's the thing. Like this game, it doesn't really reflect like what the actual like what you think of a gun tech may be like in the canonical series. They all feel like a very hero shooter role. So the gun tech is actually really good like as like a frontal assault unit, but it's like it's not really the tankiest unit in the game, but it's like very good at like pushing front lines forward because like its primary weapons obviously are like it's like chain gun arms, and then that thing like automatically has like it'll auto aim for you. Obviously like you can't like snipe with them, you have to be more up close, but like you don't have to worry about your aim as long as like the enemy's like in front of you, and like it'll auto target them. And it has skills where like it can like run up and like tackle you. And what was its other skill? Its other skills like using its mounted cannons to like kind of shoot from afar. And like it's just because like a suit in the series was more tankier doesn't mean it'll like reflect towards the actual game in this actual game itself. Like obviously,
so in the game, each character has like a certain role that they're suited to fill, but it might be slightly shifted from the expectations you might have from.
Yeah, it's not like every it's not like every Gundam is to scale. Like the Sazabi isn't like the Sazabi is actually way bigger in the anime series, but this one's like has been scaled a little bit down. Like because it's a hero shooter, you need to actually like see it, and it can't be too big, it can't be like too canonical to scale. Like Gun Tank, for example, is like way bigger. Like when you see it in the game, even though it's smaller in the series. So like the Gun Tank in this game side by side to the Gundam will be like relatively like it's almost like the same size as the Gundam. While meanwhile in the series, the Gun Tank is way smaller than the Gundam. For example,
what weird thing that I'm getting in my head is like a weird mental reference point of comparison. Pokemon Unite.
Yeah.
Where they just kind of like all the Pokemon are like scaled to be roughly similar. Their actual like base stat total or whatever doesn't really come into play because they're just more designed to serve certain roles in the game rather than be true to their true canonical strength or whatever.
Yeah. So just not every character should be a one-to-one reference. Like Overwatch, definitely they've taken inspirations from Overwatch characters in this game. So for people to think, oh, there's going to be, they just ripped off, characters from Overwatch into this game. It's like they were definitely inspired, definitely for some characters, some hero shooters, like even Valorant. But it's not like a straight skin as you're thinking. I think people should give it a shot when like it comes out, and it's gonna be, it's a free to play. So
how long is the beta period?
Just this weekend for the PC. I know there's going to be. I think there was some talk on social media there will be like a console beta test. I don't know when that's going to happen and how that'll manifest. But they just have been hinting that that'll happen as well. And it comes with all the progression mechanics that you think a hero shooter does. It has like a battle pass that you level up, and then like at certain points of the battle pass you can like roll a gacha from tickets that like you're awarded. And then like you just roll for cosmetics, so like skins, weapon skins, like MVP animations, emotes, stamps, player icons, and all that stuff. Just all cosmetics. They don't affect the gameplay or the balance. And yeah, I've just been having a really fun time with that, playing with friends, and eager to play more of that later. It's just been a fascinating thing. I guess also at the time of this recording, just a heads up. Bandai Namco also announced that Gundam Battle Operation 2, which has been on the PS4 and PS5 for quite some time, is coming to PC via Steam. No crossplay between them because they have different management teams between the PC and the consoles. and they have like different times of like when they update. But the first beta test for that starts up next weekend on Steam. If you want to like try that out, they have the request access button on the Gundam Battle Operation 2 Steam page for that. It's not like it's definitely its own thing. It's more like a Mech Warrior-esque game, very more slower paced. I played a bit of it on the PlayStation. It's a lot of fun, but it's a definitely different kind of game than obviously Gundam Evolution. It is like very interesting to see that like they announced it right as the closed beta for Gundam Evolution was about to begin. So it's gonna be interesting. There's a good chunk of Gundam games coming to Steam all of a sudden.
Adam will have plenty of reasons to stay up to watch you play Gundam games. Well, unfortunately, since that's only for this weekend, by the time most people listen to this, it'll be the closed beta for Gundam.
Rip.
Yeah, but you know,
who has been your favorite? I know you mentioned that when you said that your favorite of the set was the OG Gundam. You meant to play, or do you just meant like out of the choices they had for their roster?
To play. But you know, there are definitely a lot of like units themselves in the roster. Like I like Turn A Gundam. I don't think it's for me in this game. I think it's kind of a little bit weak so far in this Gundam Evolution. But I like the Turn A Gundam itself. Pale Rider is the Soldier 76 equivalent. In this case, it's like your tutorial character has a most basic like layout that's easy to like if you've been playing like Call of Duty and other modern FPS shooters, that'll be like the character that you want to probably start with and like to learn the game from. There's also like some cool like Gundam XC, obviously. Marasai is in there. The Dom Trooper. They put the Dom Trooper in the game, but specifically the Gundam Seed Destiny version of the Dom Trooper in the game, which is really funny and very specific. If you play like the soldier class, like in Team Fortress 2, like its primary weapon is kind of that rocket launcher where you want to aim at people's feet. I don't think you can rocket jump with it, but you can want to play like, you know, aim at people's feet because it has like an AoE damage effect on that. And it can lay down mines. But there's a lot of cool suits like just from the get go from the initial roster, and I it's gonna be really interesting to see what suits they add like down the line, because I think in order for this game to be successful, they need to be really ready with their update game in this game. I think this kind of game really needs like constant updates for people to stay engaged with it, because you know people like want to see their favorite Gundams, their favorite.
Yeah, I was gonna say like this game could easily pull a lot of fan service with the cadence and style of updates that they do. We're like now we're finally adding the G Gundam. I don't know what that Gundam is. What are your thoughts on G Gundam? I must know.
It's campy, but
it's funny. It's definitely entertaining. It's a lot of goofy fun. I love G Gundam, so you know, I'm sure that we're gonna see, you know, a representative at some point in the game. But it's such an odd, weird fit. Like I didn't know if this was gonna be like great, but like it's actually really fun. I'm really enjoying like really positive first impressions so far. Like there are definitely some things where I'm like, oh man, hopefully this gets ironed out like in the full game. Like Barbados from Iron Blooded Orphans is like insane in this game. Like
it's just watching you is really funny because it's really like you watch it as someone that unfortunately has like a couple hundred hours in Overwatch. It's like, damn, they made some real big changes for Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
Like even down to the UI, like so much of it is just honestly like straight up lifted from Overwatch.
Yeah, like when you get your ult or called the G maneuvers in this game, like you'll see like the center icon flashing and like electricity, much like you'd see in Overwatch. So yes, they read their inspirations. You know, they're not trying to hide it. We know where this idea came from, but it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, Gundam Evolution is I'm very interested to see what the lifespan of this game looks like. It'll be very. I'm definitely going to keep a close eye and hopefully going to keep on playing it again and again and again. And I just wanted to mention earlier too. It's going to be like a weird thing because, like you mentioned, Brian, like this is already pulling from a really, really, really popular franchise. So like people already want to see their favorites in it. Unlike in Overwatch and Valorant, where it's like totally brand new IPs. So people don't really know what they want because like they don't know the characters. Because like, you know, they're kind of like making up characters as they go, you know, as the game.
Well, I'm thinking like I saw a headline the other day where it's like Ubisoft is still trying to make their like Overwatch, Valorant competitor. They had like that Hyperscape, which was like a major focus of one of their summer things a few years back. I don't know if that's still going. It just feels like nothing. It feels like Valorant, which is not new anymore, was the only one that was able to like stick. And any sort of like enthusiasm there were for Overwatch 2. I haven't been following this because it's not my jam, but like I felt like forever ago, and Overwatch 2, as far as I know, is still not out.
But yeah, basically what happened is that they stopped really supporting Overwatch 1 with the excuse that all of the time and effort was going to go into Overwatch 2. And that kind of backfired because of everything with like Activision Blizzard, and basically some Activision Blizzard like developers piped up on Twitter saying that a lot of the work that they had put into Overwatch 2 was like outright vetoed and had to be scrapped because of Bobby Kotick like personally saying so, which is not a great look. So who knows what's going to end up with there. Apparently there's supposed to be an alpha or a beta for Overwatch 2 this year, but who knows if how that's going to turn out. So
yeah, I guess this is like there's like a very, very prime opportunity for Gundam Evolution to step in and hopefully like find a player base, like a loyal player base that'll like keep up with it. And because like I think this is like kind of their one chance. There's like a really big opportunity, like a big void at the moment, and that's basically like what's happened to Overwatch. Hopefully they capitalized on it and find success. I wish them the best. It's a really cool idea. It's not going to jive with everyone because hero shooters are not for everyone. But it's a really novel idea, despite its taking that Overwatch template. It's something I never would have like thought up of if I was like in game development. It's like, and it's awesome.
And with that, I think we've covered all of what most everyone here has been playing. I think we did kind of jump over Chow and a little bit of James. I know you've been playing Final Fantasy XIV in preparation for the big April 12th update. Are you ready for patch 6.1? It's 6.1, correct?
Yeah, I'm ready. I officially I have a confession. I've been playing 14 the entire time the podcast has been going on.
We can hear your keyboard. We believe it. But
I'm sorry.
It doesn't bother us. I do it too.
Yeah. So just saved up enough gil to afford at least the lottery for the new housing. I have no pretenses that I'm going to actually manage to get a house, but there's a possibility because I have enough gil that I can at least enter that lottery.
But you know what happens when you own a house, right? You'll have to stay subbed in so that you don't lose it.
I was talking to a coworker who had watched the new Batman movie, and no spoilers, but apparently at one point in the movie, they start like drawing a map on the floor or something like that. And he was like, "No, I own a house. You don't do that to the floor. Who's going to clean that up or whatever?" And I just thought that was funny. Like, oh yes, owning a place makes you changes your perspective. Sorry about that tangent.
Because once he has a house, he has to be a hardcore player. He will never have to. He can't be like the casual people where they just subbed in when there's new content coming.
Chow, I've cleared the current Savage turret. I'm pretty sure that ship has sailed.
Yeah, James going with the big. So you're saying there's a chance these next few days.
Now he's a permanent sub player. He'll never able to go back.
It's all right. It's not like I've ever unsubbed anyways.
Damn.
I mean, but that's part of the reason why I got back to. Well, I actually gave it a shot in 2020 in the first place. Is like I kept intending to play, so I never unsubbed, and it's like, well, now it's a sunk cost.
Don't be outdone. You gotta outplay James now.
Whale the entire Mog station and say that. Hey, yeah,
there you go.
Support this game more than you do.
I want to see you talk about your first experience buying a $40 mount or whatever it was.
I haven't done it yet, but James has.
I've literally whaled. I bought the whale mount.
Yeah,
was that the $40 one?
The $40 one. Well, it was on sale when it first came out for $28.
That excuses it. All right.
Yeah, but I do not have the whale mount. I have bought a bunch of skins. I literally paid $12 to get a piece of glove.
Oh boy!
Look, I On my login screen, it says I've been subbed for 1,200 days, which means I've spent at least like $600 on subs over the time I've been playing this game. But hey, I've got my money's worth considering the fact that I'm going to hit 2,000 hours in the game this month. So,
well, as long as you stay logged in, you get your money's worth. You know, back then there was this argument that people said to me, it was like, MMOs are too expensive. And then you use the argument, well, you only spent $12 and you played this game for an entire month versus people that spent $50 for a bunch of games that they only touch once and never touch it again. You know?
True. So as long as you have the executable launched and you're in the game, you are getting your money's worth. No matter what the fuck you're doing, as long as that executable is up, you are getting your money's worth.
But yeah, this is our Final Fantasy experience for the week. It's just how you're going to spend your money. I am excited for the new content though. I'm not really ready for it though.
Yeah. So Chow, if you're done with P4S by the time cross data center travel happens, do you want to prog the ultimate?
If you don't mind having me, yeah, sure. Could be a liability, guys. Could be a liability.
Oh, Chow's already like, look, I'm not that good. I'm not worthy.
I'll beat this run and we'll get that gray parse like my friend. He got like that gray parse ultimate clear, and it's like, yep, I got carried, guys. I got carried.
Wait, is gray the ultimate? I thought purple was.
Gray means that you did poorly.
Oh, the ultimate carry. All right, inverted. Gotcha. That makes more sense.
Carried.
Honestly, anyone that's complaining about a gray purse and an ultimate, it's like a gray purse is still an ultimate purse. Like, it doesn't matter if it's not the best clearer. If you still cleared, like, ultimates, you can't really be carried because there's enough like mechanics that you need to understand what you're doing, and you need to have a decent idea of your rotation, and you have to have cleared the previous Savage tier in order to even be able to do it. So, like, I'm not going to be such a tryhard. If somebody says, oh, yeah, I got an ultimate clear, I will go and check their FF logs and then scoff if they have a gray parse. Because it's like, no.
Yeah, you got the ultimate clear.
It's like one thing I learned about with the game is this. A clear is a clear. It doesn't matter what methods you use to beat it. As long as you know what you're doing and don't be toxic about it, it's fine.
Yeah, we'll hear more about that new patch next week.
Yep.
And with that, we'll go into the news section, which there isn't a lot this month, as may be expected, but there are a few things that we were introduced late last year that we finally got a first look at this year. So we'll just kind of go through this in the order I have listed, and we'll see where our natural discussion points land. So a year back or a little more, we had the big GeForce Now Square Enix leak about all the things that we could potentially look forward to. Obviously, a lot of this very on brand for our site, stuff about the Final Fantasy IX remaster and all the other things that we saw about the Chrono Cross. Like, it seems to be a very, very valid leak. And more ammunition to that stockpile is that one of the things as part of that leak was some sort of remaster for Tactics Ogre. Now, this week, Square Enix did trademark Tactics Ogre Reborn in Japan. It was filing made on March 31st. This was spotted by Gamatsu. We've kind of been expecting to hear news about the potential of a Tactics Ogre remaster ever since that initial leak. There hasn't been a Tactics Ogre game since the PSP game Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together, which I know is highly regarded and haven't played it, but I know that Adam thinks really highly of it. And so I guess I'll just lend it off to Adam. Adam, you hear about a Tactics Ogre Reborn. What are your hopes and dreams, if any?
So the thing with trademarks is that, like, when a company trademarks just like a game title or a franchise title, you know, it's hard to like put much stock into it because it might just be a renewal of some sort, you know, just so they can hold on to the name. But this is obviously something new and different. Tactics Ogre Reborn is something that hasn't existed before. So it's like they have some idea for some Tactics Ogre follow-up here. The fact that it says Reborn does sort of indicate that it's like some sort of remake or remaster or retelling of Tactics Ogre in some way, rather than, you know, like a sequel or something new. That's my assumption. I don't know. Like, I really like Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together. A couple years ago, I played the Game Boy game, Night of Lotus, and I didn't like it quite as much, but I still think it's a really solid game. And so I'm really, excited to see what this is going to be. I don't know if it's just going to be like Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together, like HD 2D style, or if it's going to be something else entirely. I don't know. I'm just extremely interested in whatever it's going to be. I think Tactics Ogre is an extremely good game with just a few flaws or issues that I like in Tactics Ogre. The one thing about it that is like one thing that I really wish it didn't do is that when you get a new class, you have to train it up from level 1, and it's just kind of tedious. Whenever you get like a brand new class, you have to basically set aside time to kind of catch it up. So it's just like, if it can be as good as the PSP game and just adjust a few small things, but don't adjust too much, then I'm excited. But now at this point, it's just all wishful thinking, right? Just like, please be great.
Yeah, I'm with you there. To be really interested to see how this manifests. I mean, Square Enix trademarks have become like this weird like confirmation, like early confirmation. Like remember the Valkyrie Elysium trademark? It's like, is that a new mobile game? And it's like, oh, it's a new console game.
This is sort of unrelated, but they also trademarked recently Romancing Saga Minstrel Song.
Oh yeah.
And the thing about that is that like that's already a game that exists, so that could just easily be just we're holding on to the name so no one else can use it. But we know that the Saga series, that they've been doing remakes and not remakes, well, some remakes sort of and remasters recently, so it's like, who knows? But yeah, this is clearly something new, and Valkyrie Elysium turned out to be, not just a placeholder of something. It was literally a project they were working on. So, but yeah, it's just,
if we're getting really into the weeds here, if we really want to read between the lines here, when the NVIDIA GeForce Now leak came out, they whatever this Tactics Ogre Reborn is, that we assume it's gonna be the Tactics Ogre remaster entry in that. And then from previous NVIDIA leaks that was like the way they were named, like ActRaiser Renaissance was ActRaiser Remake, Chrono Cross Remaster was the Radical Dreamers Edition. Then you had like all the other unannounced titles, like Unannounced Card Game 2 was the Voice of Cards sequel, and the unannounced Dungeon Tactics case was Dungeon Encounters. So, like, if we're just going off like how the NVIDIA leak labels it, this will be more of a remaster rather than a full-on remake. But who knows? Who knows? We're just kind of who knows?
It could be anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it's like, what happens if Square made an NFT Tactics Ogre game?
Don't say that, Chow. What the fuck? If that happens, I know it's all on you. Some Square Enix.
Oh god,
Sega Super Game. I'm already feeling. I'm still feeling the scars.
Oh my god, Chow! You just fucking ruined this.
I know a lot of people, when we tweeted about this, were just like, please don't be a mobile game.
Yeah,
which I could actually see that. Like, the fact that it was in a GeForce Now makes me think that it's not, because a mobile game wouldn't be on that.
Yeah,
but like Tactics Ogre has lots of characters, so who knows? But that's weird.
That is such not a lucrative process. It's like, yes, gotcha for your favorite Tactics Ogre characters. It's like,
well,
they have a Saga gotcha. Who knows?
But they have a vast world to use. I mean, they could use the entire Ogre Battle world. I mean, speaking of Ogre Battle, there's a fan translation for the Sega Saturn version that was released just recently. If anyone's curious of playing that, it is the best version of the game.
If they want a mobile Tactics Ogre game to do well, they just need to start out with a Nier Automata collaboration, and it'll be good.
Well, look at Babylon's Fall. They already have the Nier Automata collab. Did that save the game?
I take it back.
Very good.
We'll have to get Tony on here to talk about Babylon's Fall at some point, because that game is not being shut down. They've given us their word.
Yeah, the Nier collab will save it. We are buying $30 to get the hairstyle of 2B.
Hell yeah! Finally, that's the whale that I want to chase.
Once it's on sale for 25% off, I'll get it.
Isn't it a collab, meaning that it's only temporary?
I have no idea.
Flavor of the month.
Limited time. So you got to get in, Brian. You can't wait for a sale.
Don't want to miss out. I'll never get my 2B or my Can't even finish that sentence.
But
well,
I don't know. Tactics Ogre, sure. We'll take it.
Put Let Us Play Together on Steam.
As long as it doesn't get fucking Radical Dreamers editioned, I think I'll be okay. But who knows now that it says remaster rather than remake. It's a toss-up.
So last year we got the announcement, it was about a year ago, it was back in like May, we got the announcement of a new action RPG, Made in Abyss, Binary Star Falling into Darkness. And over the course since then, it's been mostly quiet. We got a few screenshots like in November, but we finally got the first trailer just this last week for this Made in Abyss game. So we had a couple discussions about this game back when it was announced, about like how bleak it is and how like its art style kind of belies like its narrative themes and tones. So I don't know. Does after I was really interested in this game after hearing about the premise last year. The trailer really hasn't moved the needle much. I'm still interested. It's kind of what I expected, but I don't know. Is this something that we're looking forward to still as a possible like sleeper RPG for later in 2022?
I don't know. Quite. I wouldn't say quite possibly, but who knows? Who knows? It's interesting. I don't know. Like just from the trailer alone, I don't think like it has like great production values. Like the
right, I was
developers
gonna say that
corporation,
it's a little cheap,
and like they worked on like a ReZero game that came to modern platforms, and that wasn't really. I didn't play it, but it just didn't really interest me because I don't really care much for ReZero. But if the mechanics are solid enough, like it's definitely, I'm definitely gonna check this out because I like the Made in Abyss IP. I think it's really really fascinating. And when this game was first announced, like the real like eye opener for a lot of people was like, because it's such a violent like source material, and like right from the get go they announced, oh, this is gonna be Zero Z rating in Japan, which is kind of like the most intense rating over there. So it's like, okay, some shit's really gonna go like be represented here, and then like you see it a little bit in this new trailer where like there's some really violent things that happen in like the latter half of that trailer. So I'm not really too sure like how it'll shake out overall, but it's they're showcasing the right stuff, even though the production value might not be exactly up to snuff. But it seems interesting enough though.
Yeah, so this is right now only slated to as a release window of fall of 2022. So maybe we'll see this year. I do agree with you that the production values look kind of cheap. Like it almost looks like it was a mobile game that was up-resed at some point. It's releasing, by the way, for PC, PlayStation 4, and Switch.
Yeah,
and we'll have dual audio.
And I guess that like I think what concerns me is because there's gonna be like two modes. There's one that like follows like the original, like the main source material protagonists and their journey, and then there's like another mode that's like a game original character that goes along with them. And like I don't exactly know like where's the separation there, because like the premise has to be the same. Like they both have to they both have to start at like entering this abyss and going down it, because that's just how the story works. But like I don't know exactly where they decide to separate and what makes them different at the moment, because like what they're showcasing at the moment is like there's one mode that follows like the events of like the original story, and one that has like one with the like it looks like the events of the original story, but there's like an original main character there, and like I don't know, they haven't really conveyed that all that well.
I wonder if it's a case where it's like there's like a story mode that like tries to recreate it, and then there maybe is a kind of like roguelike mode, or maybe not roguelike, but like a survival, just trying to get as far as you can with a non-named NPC or something. That would be like my read, but again, we don't know too much about the game yet, so it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? And the way like the press release does say like experience the anime story, so it has Rico and Reg from meeting for the first episode of season 1, and then they start their adventure, and then the brand new story, apparently another story starts many days after Rico and Reg depart for the abyss. So like you're this original character that like I guess goes in who knows after them, or out of curiosity, who knows. But you definitely see in the trailer that like this original character like links up with them. So I don't know, it's weird. But who knows? Yeah, that's all I can really say from what the footage that they've shown. Apart from like, they're gonna go. It looks like they're teasing like they're gonna go up to the events of the most recent movie that came out, which is Dawn of the Deep Soul, and that's like quite a bit into it. And then like the season 2 of the anime starts like next season in summer. So who knows if it's gonna cover that as well.
A couple other smaller updates to start wrapping things up. We did learn that the next Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis update will be in June, which will add the third region to the game, which is the ice-themed Kvaris region. So as someone who still kind of plays this game and still pokes at it from time to time, this is sort of interesting. And they have recently updated to add like more weapon arts and more techniques, which is this series version of spells. So there's finally like adding a little bit of like buildcraft and variety to it. So I don't know, like I don't think the second region that they added back in December really shook up the game that much. So I don't really have high hopes for this third region, but they are kind of.
Will you let me know if it's time to start the game if the third region is like significant?
They're adding something that like later in April that is kind of basically like some sort of 4-man dungeon. They call it like a something expedition. I don't remember what it was. They were also adding like some quality of life improvements in terms of like being able to access shops with items from your storage and things like that. So it's better than it was. I wouldn't say you should start it now in preparation for this update, but yeah, I'll let you know if like once this update's out, if it finally feels like the game has some meat on it, because right now it still feels kind of threadbare to me. I hate to just announce this and be like, yeah, just wait. But I don't know. I do think that the second region, was a step in the right direction. Let's see if this is like finally a good landing point or if it's just another step in the right direction. It's hard to tell based on the preview footage. And that'll be I forget if I said, that'll be in June. We got a release date for the Story of Seasons Pioneers of Olive Town port for PlayStation 4. It will release this, well, not even a release date. I'm sorry. We'll just know that it will release in summer for PlayStation 4. It released previously on Switch and PC last year in 2021.
It has a Japanese date of July 28th, so probably shortly after that.
I was just wondering, was it Story Season has like some very huge performance issues in the Switch version that was patched up later on. I just wonder how would this game would fare, because I just noticed like when I was playing Rune Factory 5, it's like these performance issues, it doesn't seem like a standalone thing just with that game. It's also a Story of Seasons, so I wonder if it's gonna suffer the same hiccups.
Well, it's already out on Switch, but this game, I know some people were like disappointed at its original release, and then it got some like free updates, and then also like the expansion pass adds more like content and stuff to the game. Now, I guess in Japan, this like PS4 version will come bundled with the expansion pass, but in the West it does not. But it's also cheaper because it doesn't. So it feels like it's one of those things where you almost want to get the expansion pass because of like the content it adds is, I guess, more than just extraneous extra stuff. It's actually like very like useful things. I'm not big on these sorts of games, so I can't really speak to it much more than that. But I just remember hearing that the expansion pass actually makes the game considerably better than what it is without it.
Yeah, I know someone that was a big fan of this game. Despite the egregious performance issues on Switch, he definitely says to play it on PC. Hopefully this PS4 version is good. So there's another version that folks can recommend, because it does sound like, especially with the expansion, that this is one of the better Story of Seasons games.
We got a release date for Brigandine. It is releasing on PC on May 11th. It originally released as a Switch exclusive last year, and then released on PlayStation 4 back in December. So now it'll hit
2 years ago, actually.
Yeah. Has it really been that long? I remember playing the demo for this, for the Switch version. Damn.
To be clear, this is like the Legend of Runersia, like new Brigandine game.
Yeah, Chow liked this game, right?
Yeah, I do. That's great.
The original though, or the remake?
The remake. The only thing that I would like knock some points off is probably like combat kind of sometimes wears you out, especially when the AI sees that you're kind of vulnerable to keep trying to attack you nonstop, and it just kind of wears you out, right? and that's probably like my only beef with it, because sometimes the battles aren't really fast paced. It kind of takes a while to get through them, especially like how tanky some things are. And the game's really punishing as well. So if you lose something, it's like it takes forever to get it back. So try not to like lose something, you know.
What do you think about the new additions that's coming to this PC version? Did you look at those?
I think it looks like the exact same game. It's just on PC. That's what I'm
Like
saying.
it says like the new modes are like it includes a creative mode that unlocks after clearing the main mode, and that you can pick like your preferred power balance and starting nights and play without a time limit.
That's interesting, but I don't know.
Also like a new game plus.
I'm not like a big fan of like self-creating things, you know. Like in most games, like if there's like a mode where you had to create your own levels, I never touch that kind of feature.
All right, how about a new game plus feature to load your cleared game save data and start a new game with items carried over and battle map HP display for units?
Fucking destroy everybody.
There you go.
There is one kingdom that's kind of like that. There is one kingdom that has like literally no military power. It was like so weak to start, but the thing is, they have like they have one tactical advantage. They're in the middle of the mountains in nowhere, so there's
it's hard to get to them.
Yeah, it's hard to get to them. So they don't have many enemies. While like if you're playing like this one side, you're basically have like the strongest power, but you're like enemies of everybody. So you're like right in the center of everything.
That's sick. I want to try this now that it's coming to PC now.
I remember when I played the demo, I still can't believe it was 2 years ago, not last year. Damn. That's how it goes.
Time flies.
Yeah, so I remember thinking it was really interesting, but I just never made time for it because it seems like a sort of game that'll just has like a long run time because, like you said, the battles are slow, especially if you play as like all 6 kingdoms. I wouldn't do that, but maybe with a new game plus, that would be something that'd be more palatable. I thought, from what I played from the demo, I thought it was really interesting. Just never made time for it. PC would probably be the place where I'd be most likely to do that. So yeah, it's going to be releasing on May 11th for Steam.
How long is like an average playthrough of this game, Chow?
I think about 30 to 40 hours, depending on how good you are at the game. I mean,
what if I suck?
What if we're terrible?
Well, there's an easy mode. Well, you can always use the easy mode.
No, hell no. All right.
PC, you can use a trainer and, Google it. I'm sure you could figure something out.
Maybe if you like skip everything, I think it will still take about 15 to 20. I think if you're like skipping the cutscenes and fast forwarding all the time, maybe I don't know. But it's a pretty beefy playthrough. I mean,
we have another PC port that got a release date announcement, and that is Demon Gaze Extra will launch for PC on April 26th. So it previously released for PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch just in January. So I think Adam was talking about how he had heard good things specifically about the Demon Gaze Extra version of the game. Does this make you more interested in trying it?
I don't think Extra adds a lot. I guess it adds like a little bit like faster motion, which is probably worth it, and like on one extra class. But it's pretty much just a port of Demon Gaze with just like a few additions, hence the Extra. I played the original Demon Gaze on Vita. It's okay. It's not my favorite experience RPG. I feel like it has some balancing issues and some other like problems. It's also very horny. Kind of weird in places. It gets kind of awkward. Like one of the characters, their whole character gimmick is that they are obsessed with underwear. It's just, that's the type of game it is. It does have some interesting like ideas mechanically that I don't think any other game I've seen it do. So the main conceit to Demon Gaze's battles is that you have your normal team of like 4 or 5 player created characters who are, a certain class. Very typical in these sorts of games. You have like your ranged units, your upfront tanks, and your spellcasters in like a dungeon crawling RPG. But then you also get, this is what's unique about Demon Gaze, is you get like a demon who is kind of operating alongside you, but they're kind of working on their own. You don't really have any control over them. So it's sort of like a tertiary party member. You like summon one of the demons who's most valuable is Mars because they do a lot of damage, but they just kind of act on their own. You kind of want to rely on them, but you can't because you don't know what they're going to do. So you kind of have your party that obviously you have 100% full control over. Then you kind of have like this demon that just does what they want. So it's kind of an interesting like wrinkle, but It's kind of interesting that it took this long for this game to come to PC, because a lot of the other Experience games either came immediately or eventually, like shortly after their console, Xbox, whatever release they had. This was a Vita game in like 2013, so it took like almost 10 years.
Yeah,
for it to
and
finally
the reason for this
release.
extra release because like it released like overseas like in January, I think, like the English version
Yeah,
for
not
console.
that long ago.
Yeah, but this is now like under like Plaid Leopard Entertainment and Kadokawa Games,
Yep.
the big one. So this probably means that maybe Relayer will come to PC in a few months, hopefully this year. I can imagine.
Yeah, maybe.
And one of the we might have one or two more pieces of news depending on how many topics we go into, but the last listed thing here that we have is late last year, in like, well, maybe not late last year, last August, we talked about a new Shining Force game that was announced and had a trailer shortly thereafter for Shining Force Heroes of Light and Darkness. It was a Shining Force game planned for mobile devices, set for a worldwide release this year at some point. But since the announcement in August, it's been pretty quiet. And now some sources, according to Touch Arcade, citing some Korean sources, based on a shareholders meeting held in March, it seems like Shining Force Heroes of Light and Darkness is ceasing any development work. So within a year, we were getting the announcement of a new Shining Force game, wrestling with the fact that it might have been a mobile only game, which some people would have been turned off by. And now it seems like it is no longer in development, citing high development costs. So it was good to know you and have a glimmer of hope for a return of the Shining Force series, but it seems like as of right now, the new title in it has been canceled.
That's a shame.
That it looked kind of neat. It looked weird, but it looked kind of neat as well because it had like it was obviously your strategy grid based system, but then like during battle seasons you go to like the isometric facing off with your opponent to do your battle animation. Yeah, that sucks. But
there are some amusing responses to our tweet about this, where some people didn't know that this game existed at all, and they're like, "I learned this game existed and it's canceled" in the same tweet.
Yeah,
yeah.
It be like that, man.
I mean, technically, the game didn't exist. It never had a chance to.
Yeah,
and it had an art style that almost looked like a weird mix between like 80s anime and like Cal Arts American style. It had an art style that I know that some people really didn't enjoy. Yeah. But well, and as someone who has not played a Shining Force game, like I don't feel too much of a sting on this, nor did I feel any particular way about the initial announcement. But it does kind of just stink whenever a game is canceled because all that work that the developers put into it.
It stings because you saw like footage of the game already. You know what it looked like. And it's like, oh, and if you thought it looked cool, well,
too bad.
Yeah, just the realities of game development. They're not cheap to make, even mobile ones.
And the last bit here is I do know, and I won't say I know. I've seen discussion about new magazine information about the upcoming Kuro no Kiseki II Crimson something. I forget what the subtitle is. As you can see, I'm not the Crimson Sin. I have been trying to keep up with the series with the English releases, so obviously I am naturally at a disadvantage when it comes to being excited for whenever Kuro will make its way stateside, and we're already looking at Kuro 2 information ahead of its release. So I guess I'll just hand it off to either I'll do James, and then I'm sure Josh will chime in as well. Maybe even Zhao. I know all three of you are further along in this series than I am, but with threading the needle about not wanting to spoil the events of Kuro 1, what have we seen about the release information about Kuro 2 in the last week?
The good news about Kuro 2's like premise is it doesn't really spoil really anything about Kuro 1, which is good.
That's good.
Which is good. Basically, the things that we have seen is that between the new trailer, the new gameplay, and all of the information that they've shared, it seems like the stuff that they showed off earlier that made it seem like Van and Elaine would be the two main like protagonists for Kuro 2 seems to be like keeping up, which is really really interesting, and I'm really happy about that. But yeah, that's cool. They showed some new gameplay changes for the on field action combat there's now like quick arts that you can do that seem to be on a cooldown. Nothing else they've shown that's really different about it, but there does seem to be like new chain EX attacks or something.
I guess like to back it up, like for people who don't know, like Kuro 1 had like this hybrid battle system where you can like switch between real-time action and turn-based modes on the fly. That's one of the primary reasons why Falcom decided to make their own engine, was to support this kind of system. And surprisingly, it worked pretty well in the first one. It was still rudimentary, like it wasn't like super refined, but like it worked pretty well. And in this one, but in the first one, you can only do like basic like attack chains in the real time mode, so like there wasn't really much dynamic actions you can do in that. So you do like basic combo chains, dodge roll, and then once you get enemy to a certain point, you can switch into turn based and like sweep them up real fast. And like in Kuro 2, like you can do more actions in that real time mode where as James mentioned, like you have quick access to like abilities now that look like they flow really well. They showed like some gameplay footage in the Geki online stream for the game, and like it looks way smoother in this game in between those transitions.
And this might be a really dumb question, but it's still primarily turn based, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because boss battles have to be turn based in the game. You can't do boss battles in real time. So it is still primarily a turn based game, but the real time action to it like helps like navigating fields feel a lot more smooth. So like you can sweep up like small mobs really fast, taking advantage of those systems in tandem.
So Josh, did you watch the gameplay footage?
Yeah.
I did. Honestly, the biggest change is that high speed mode's back.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
remember. Did Kuro 1 get patched to have a turbo mode? I already forgot.
No.
It was only 60 FPS that they really introduced.
It's 60 FPS and skipping
animation. Yeah. God damn it, I forgot they had that.
Too. It seems pretty clear that the footage they showed was from the PS5 version because the lighting and shadows seem to be improved. And obviously, while it's nowhere near a AAA release, it does look nice and clean, especially with the new footage. So I'm pretty excited to see how.
Yeah, the new graphical engine does a lot of like heavy lifting. Like it is looking better and better. In its own way, fishing is back in a big way. Thank God.
Can't have a Trails game without fishing.
Sorry, dude. Don't play Kuro 1 then.
Oh my God, worst game ever.
Don't play Kuro 1 then. They spent a lot of time and resources into their graphical engine at the cost of like side content in that game. So there's there's some, but not a lot. But they're not building that out now that they have like the engine in place. So, and yeah, like I think the most fascinating part about this, as James alluded to, is that Elaine was more of a side character in the first one. That definitely
I'd say that
like she was treated more like marketed and treated more as a side character in the first one, like when they were introducing the game. Obviously, how it manifested in the game, it felt like because of like the circumstances they were narratively, like she was sometimes a party member, but really wasn't. While in this one, she's definitely a full playable party member. Looks to be with you at all times now, and because of the premise of the game, like.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it made sense. And now it's really, really fascinating that like Van and Elaine are like working more together as a duo. Like they seem to be like more in tandem. And like that's the kind of like the best part of like Kuro, in my opinion. It's like when Van and Elaine were like together, and like Elaine and Agnes's interactions are like great at teasing Van.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to get excited for this because of Falcom's history. But you're thinking the same thing where it's like, are they going to go for it? Because Kuro 1 doesn't have any relationships. And this is a minor spoiler for Kuro. It really doesn't matter for folks.
Yeah.
Van and Elaine are exes. They were dating in high school. So it's like, are they gonna go that route? I hope so, because it's like, especially since they're going with this like direction,
they have weird history because they were exes, and they were really close, but because of the narrative, like Van kind of like fucks off for like a good amount of time and unceremoniously.
Certainly more. That's certainly preferable to Cold Steel, just Reen and any other girl.
Yeah, and I hope they don't go for like Van either chooses Elaine or Agnes. I don't think that would be a great move. I think sticking to like one like canonical relationship because like the narrative like builds up to it in a natural way is the right way to go. Instead of like how you know Aono Kiseki and Cold Steel.
They should just get rid of the harem. It's not.
There's still a chance though that they go for the harem stuff because you got obviously Judith and Shizuna, but at least those two are adults. So
yeah, but I hope they don't because Van is so suited not to have it. You know, that's not his personality.
Yeah,
at all.
As someone who hasn't played Kuro 1, I like the idea of having like showing a working relationship between two people who are exes and not just being like, oh, they get back together because that's the happy ending, rather than just being like, no, like
they're still really they're still really awkward about it because they still don't know how to like exactly like process like what happened. You know,
yeah, because the whole reason like everything that happened was explicitly like Van cutting it off. So it's
a really fascinating thing on the writing side on that.
Yeah, I just like the idea is I think it's just more interesting on paper to have that X dynamic and having them work through that and have it be a little awkward rather than just be like, will they, won't they? Yes, they will because fan service or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I'm a James like because of past Falcom stuff. It's I'm trying my best not to be excited, but at the same time, I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, because like the actual writing of Kuro, like there's like the standard Falcom issue where there's like, oh, they're saying the same thing too many times. It's like it's very repetitive dialogue, but on the same token,
Kuro has like really cool shit because Kuro has a legit like a parental issues arc in that narrative.
And it's got like legitimately like really strong themes to it, which I think the series has kind of struggled with. It's like really good. I
feel bad because I'm so sorry. We keep talking about this, and people will be able to experience it until like God knows
2024, like at least 2 years from now.
So, what is the theme? This is a tangent, but what is the theme of? No, I was going to ask, what is the theme of Cold Steel? To me, it seems like having not played Cold Steel 4. But like it seems like there are no bad people. There are only bad.
Oh, okay. Are you talking about like overall like narrative themes or like Reen's like theme, like character like theme? Because that's.
I'd say that Reen has a theme, and I'd say that it definitely is better by the end of Hajimari, but it takes 5 games to get there.
Yeah, but like if you're talking like overall narrative theme to Cold Steel, like that's way less.
I got nothing. I got nothing.
There are no bad people. There are only. There's only goop.
It's of course is the theme. There's your theme, but like in terms of like I can understand like why people. I don't agree with it, but I can understand why people can sort of like Reen as a character because he kind of has like this weird internal struggle of like finding his own way and like it takes way too long to like ever reach a firm resolution to that.
I'd say that he's a decent character by the end of the arc. It just takes way too long to get there.
Yeah. But it's just, but in terms of like overall world narrative theme, Kuro is so much more interesting just from the get-go.
And it sounds like even Hajimari is.
Yeah, Hajimari has some interesting stuff.
Oh, that reminds me. I'm not going to say anything more of this, but we see a returning Hajimari character in the scans too. For Kuro too. And them showing up has a lot of implications on who else might show up. Because the certain character never ever like is separated from another character from Hajimari that's introduced.
Yeah, and it's like there were certain characters that were alluded to in Kuro that we don't see like specifically, but it's like oh, interesting.
Yeah. Oh man. So like now we're getting to the point where you need to have played Hajimari to understand Kuro too now.
Oh no, the thing is though, is that like Hajimari already was kind of not really required, but really
fundamental. Like Kuro 1, like if you just wanted to like dip your feet in the series for the first time, like and like make the concession that like, okay, there will be a lot of stuff that like I don't get, like returning characters or their histories, but like take it as like a standalone JRPG experience.
Oh yeah,
like it's fine. But now like we're going to Kuro 2, and now it's going to like, okay, this is now you're now taking more of the back catalog into it.
Well, the one thing I've always said is that while you can definitely have Kuro as your first and you'll have a great time, if you've played any Trails games, you need to have played all of them before you start Kuro, because it is really heavily tied to Hajimari in ways that I was surprised about.
Yeah, and I'm sure also like if returning Hajimari character, because this person also like is central to C's route, I imagine C might show up in Kuro 2, and like you need to have no C by then. Like,
yeah,
there's no way they're gonna keep up the facade in this game.
It's at the point where it's like, I'm sorry, people that are trying to get into Trails, it's terminal.
It's salute.
Do you think we'll ever get comfortable or used to saying into reverie instead of Hajimari?
Once it comes out, like
it's just
more.
It's just I'm so used to saying Hajimari at this point.
Yeah. I've not played it, and I'm used to saying Hajimari.
I mean, I still know there's people that call Cold Steel Zen. So.
Then I still call it with some circles, and then I think the one exception is I'll never like get comfortable to say Trails into Azure over Ao no Kiseki.
And there's also a group of friends I know call it GB. I don't know why they call it GB.
What?
For Cold Steel, they call it GB. I don't know.
It's a joke. I can explain to you later.
Well, that's all the news that we had for this week. So not that much, just a backlog crunching month, and obviously the release of Chrono Cross being a major discussion point. So we will continue with that sort of mindset as we go through the month of April, and lots of stuff that we have talked about over the last couple podcasts that have been filling out the summer and early autumn months as we head through these more quiet times as we start to look at some of the games in our backlog, and maybe I'll play Cold Steel 4 and report back at some point in May. Who knows?
Alluding for you, Brian.
And then Adam will have to play that Typing of Use game and do the same thing.
What's the Typing of Trails game, dude? I'm down.
Yeah. Just leaving money on the table.
I know.
Type haha over and over.
Have the easy mode being that you type the characters' names, and then the hard mode is you have to type their titles.
No, dude. The easy mode just typing haha a lot of times.
Well, all the news that we talked about on this podcast, we can find at rpgsite.net, as well as the 2 reviews that we opened the podcast with, the 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. I don't know why it took me so much effort to get that out. The 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim Switch review is up on the site, thanks to Nathan, as well as the Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers Edition review up on the site, thanks to Cullen, as well as a couple guides that have gone up on the site for those, and the one feature about the Chrono Trigger Chrono Cross connection point that was put up on the site. You can find us on all the social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. You can join our Discord at discord.gg/RPG site, or hitting the link at the top of our homepage. And we will be back next week with another edition of this Tetracast. So thank you so much for listening. If you've made it all the way to the end, we love hearing any comments or feedbacks that you have for us, whether on the comments of the Tetracast post on the site or even on the YouTube video if you're watching that way. But until you hear from us next time, stay safe, take care, stay cool, and we'll talk to you then.
We're so sorry, Trails fans.
All right, time for the anime podcast.